Palermo is absent. Rowe.
Here.
Bagley.
Here.
Harding. Johnson.
Here.
Mr. President.
Here. Please rise for the pledge and remarks by Councilmember Johnson.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Have a seat. As District 2 representative, where the College World Series is currently being hosted, I would like to comment on the aspects of the College World Series to Omaha, Nebraska. Hosting the Men's College Baseball World Series in Omaha brings numerous economic benefits to the city. First and foremost, the event attracts thousands of visitors. Oh, thank you. Including fans, players, coaches, and their families, resulting in a significant influx of tourism revenue. Local businesses such as hotels, restaurants, and retailers experience a surge in sales and job opportunities. The increased footfall stimulates the local economy, contributing to higher tax revenues for the city. Moreover, the event enhances Omaha's reputation as a sports destination, attracting future sporting events and boosting the city's overall image. The College World Series also generates media exposure, promoting Omaha as a vibrant and attractive city for potential residents, investors, and businesses. So again, I would just like to thank the many teams that came here to Omaha, and the winner would be very, very, very exciting when they get back home to be recognized as being the winner. Thank you.
An affidavit of publication is on file for the pre-council and city council meeting, and a current copy of the Open Meeting Act is posted in a white binder on the east wall of legislative chambers.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Omaha City Council. We appreciate having you here today. We look forward to hearing from you on our many items. I encourage you to turn your cell phones off, or at least turn them to vibrate. And I can recognize the county board members who are just getting finished with their meeting on the way out. Madam Clerk.
Item 6, to consider a Class C liquor license for Grover Inn located at 3505 South 42nd Street.
Public hearing and vote on number 6 is today. Proponents, please. Anyone in favor of number 6 for the Grover Inn? I don't see anyone. Council members, typically we require an applicant to be present.
I'm here.
Oh, please come down. And then we just need your name and address for the record there.
Todd Stevens, 3410 South 43rd Street, business at 3502 South 42nd Street, Omaha.
Thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. Motion and a second to approve. Roll call.
Thank you.
Melton. Yes. Rowe. Yes. Bagley. Yes. Harding. Yes. Johnson. Yes. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Item 7, to consider a Class C liquor license for Happy Bar located at 601 North 16th Street.
Public hearing and vote on number 7 is today. We have the applicant by Zoom, I believe. Let's see, Mr. Peterson.
Good afternoon, council members. Zach unfortunately couldn't be with us today. This is John Wesley Wilson on behalf of the Happy Bar LLC.
Great. And your address?
9500 West Dodge Road, Suite 100, Omaha, Nebraska 68114.
All right. Thank you. And just here to answer questions, right?
Correct.
All right. Any other proponents on number 7? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. Ms. Johnson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. This question is for the owner of the bar, Happy Bar. Are you there?
Okay.
Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Ryan Sopel. I'm just an attorney as well attending.
I'm sorry, what's your last name, Ryan?
COUFAL.
Thank you. Can you give us a day in the life of what's going to happen at the Happy Bar?
Sure. The current owners of the Happy Bar have been working at that premise for over 10 years now. It's really, things are going to continue business as usual. Tragically, their mother passed away, was the previous license holder. And so going through this process to allow them to continue the operation of the premise, and really nothing is going to change.
So there's not,
Service.
oh, we couldn't hear you.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, nothing's going to change.
All right, thank you. Motion to approve?
There's a motion and a second to approve. No other lights. Roll call.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0. Item 8, to consider a Class C liquor license for Osso Mix Grill and Chill located at 2229 Leavenworth Street.
Public hearing and vote on number 8 is today. Proponents, please. Hi.
My name is Noe Aguilar. I'm on the owner also makes grill and chill. It's 2229 Leavenworth Street.
Thank you. Any other proponents that want to speak today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Mr. Bagley, you're recognized.
Thanks, Mr. President. Mr. Aguilar, good afternoon. Thanks for
Yeah.
coming down today. I tried to play a little phone tag. I was trying to get a hold of you on Friday, and then today I left a message with Jacqueline, I believe.
Yes.
So sorry I couldn't talk in person, but I went so far as I went and had lunch about an hour and a half ago, had some tacos.
Oh, yeah.
I drug Fesserson with me. We really enjoyed the salsa, and the tacos were terrific. So I encourage anybody out there that wants to try a new restaurant on 23rd and Leavenworth. It's tremendous food, spotless, clean, happy, smiling waitresses. It was a great experience. The one thing that I just got a little bit of concern with is that you're asking to change your license to from an I to a C. Is that correct?
Yes.
I would be willing to support this. I just, to support it as an I to, is existing right now, but I would not be comfortable supporting a C, not because I don't support your restaurant. I had some communication from the Columbus Park Neighborhood Association, who also shared in writing their sentiments that they're so happy that you're there. But before you open your restaurant, there's been a lot of problems down in that area that you moving in will start helping clean that up. It'll encourage other businesses. But at this time, would you be willing to keep your license as an I and not move it to a C? Because if you are willing to do that, I would make a motion. Would I have to amend that, Mr. President? To amend this from a C to keep it as an I. Do you understand that, or did I kind of walk through that funny for you?
Yeah, I understand.
Are you okay with having it as an I? So in other words, if I go in there on a Saturday evening to have dinner with my family, I can enjoy a cold beverage, alcoholic beverage, but I just can't leave with anything. That's what I hear from people in that neighborhood, and we went through this with the Dollar General store, a liquor application just south of you there. So if you're willing to do this as amended to keep it as an I would support that. Are you okay doing that?
Yes.
Okay, then that's my motion today. Thank you again for coming down, and if you want to take 30 seconds to give your plug for your great business and I'm stuffed in my belly with from eating today, go ahead. You have the floor to tell everybody what you want them to know about your new place.
And I'll second that motion. Floor is yours.
I'm just the interpreter, so he gets nervous when he speaks.
You're doing just
when he
fine.
Speaks English, so dígale de su restaurante qué es lo que tiene.
Okay, I have seafood and Mexican food gorditas, burritos, and a lot of stuff.
Great taste.
Great taste.
Yes,
Very
yes.
authentic food.
And very, very clean, very spotless, and the happiest staff that you can imagine. So that he understands then that we're going to keep it amended to have it as an I. And that means you can only have alcoholic beverages in the restaurant, but not leaving the premises.
Sí le entendía cuando le dijo.
Yes.
He understood.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have, Mr. President. Thank you.
Can I have the interpreter just give your name and address too?
Yes, my name's Araceli Espericueta. Home address is 2682 North 129th Circle, Omaha 68164.
Great, thank you. And I agree with Councilman Bagley and seconded the motion. And we had a great lunch. Your place looks great. It's spotless. I think it would be a great addition to. And we played a little soccer with the kids across the street there too.
Oh, yeah.
Pete did, I did, so.
All right, there's a motion and
Thank
a
you.
second. No further lights to amend to an I. Roll call.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0.
And then as amended?
As amended, yes.
Second. Roll call.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Item 9, to consider a Class C liquor license for Firewater Grill located at 7007 Grover Street.
Public hearing and vote on number 9 is today. We have the applicant by Zoom, Mr. Kelly.
Mr. President, members of the council, Mike Kelly, 2804 South 87th Avenue.
Just
Can you hear me?
Yep, just here to answer questions, right, Mike?
I'm just here for questions.
Okay, thank you. Any other proponents on number 9? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. Motion and a second. Roll call.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0.
Thanks.
Thank
Item
you.
10, to consider a Class I liquor license for iSpa Lash Nail Lounge located at 14158 West Center Road.
Public hearing and vote on number 10 is today. Proponents, please.
Duke Tran, 10685 Bedford Avenue, 114, Omaha. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. Motion to approve in a second. Roll call.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0.
Thanks.
Item 11, to consider a Class I liquor license for Nail Perfection and Spa located at 3309 Oakview Drive, Suite 103.
Public hearing and vote on number 11 is today. Proponents, please.
Hi,
Your name and address?
my name is Shayla and it's for Pink LLC. Business name is Nail Perfection and Spa, 3309 Oakview Drive, Suite 103, Omaha, Nebraska, 68144.
Okay. I'm just here to answer questions.
Yes,
Okay, thank you. Any other proponents today?
Hi, my name is Diana Schmidt, and I'm the property manager.
And your address too?
Home address 19142 L Street, Omaha 68135.
All right, thank you. Any other proponents on number 11? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. Motion to approve in a second. Roll call.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0.
Thank you.
thank you.
Item 12, to consider a Class D liquor license for Brothers Liquor and Convenience located at 2517 South 132nd Street.
Public hearing and vote on number 12 is today. I believe we have the applicant by Zoom.
Hello, this is Achyut Mishra. So our property address is 132nd and West Center Road. That's in Orchard Plaza 1. And then we are planning for a liquor business like cold beer, wine, and some spirits. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Do we have another applicant by Zoom too, or is that the? Okay, go ahead. I think you're on mute there, or we'll try and get you off here in a second. Okay, try that.
Okay. Hi, I'm Min Nirola. So we are two partners. Achut and me will be running that store in 2517 South 132nd Street, Omaha 68144. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Is that why we call it brothers, the two of you?
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you both for being here. Are there any other proponents on number 12? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed.
Thank you.
So motion to approve in a second. No further lights. Roll call.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0.
Thank you.
Item 13, to consider a Class D liquor license for Mega Saver located at 5301 North 90th Street.
Public hearing and vote on number 13 is today. We have the applicant also by Zoom. Let's see.
Hello, my name is Timur Samiev. I'm an operations manager with MegaSaver. I'm at 202 South 73rd Street. Just here to answer any questions.
Great, thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. Motion a second to approve. Roll call.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0.
Thank you.
Item 14, to consider a special designated liquor license for Perry's Place located at 9652 Mockingbird Drive for an outdoor concert on July 15th from 6 p.m. to midnight with music until midnight.
Public hearing and vote on number 14 is today. Proponents, please.
Yes, hello. William Perry, address 13644 Wright Street, or 68134 Wright Street, Omaha, Nebraska, 68144, on behalf of Perry's Place.
Great, thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. Motion to approve in a second. Roll call.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Item 15, to consider a long-form application for a Class C liquor license for Throwback Arcade Lounge located at 1402 Howard Street. A's Communications in opposition.
The public hearing and vote on number 15 is today. I will note that this is a procedure for a long-form application, so a little bit different than the public hearings we just went through on other liquor licenses. The hearing will be conducted in accordance with Omaha Municipal Code 1533. And so just to kind of spell out how this will work ahead of time, we'll first hear from the applicant of the Throwback for those that are in favor of renewing this application. Once we hear from them, we'll have a chance to hear from the city attorney and if council members have any questions. Following that testimony, anyone who's here to testify in favor of the license may then provide their comments, also followed by the city attorney and council member questions if there are any. Then we'll hear from those in opposition to the license. Once we hear from them, we'll have a chance for the applicant to respond to anything they've heard, also the city attorney, and then if council members have any additional questions. We'll then call up the Sergeant Joseph Mraz from the Omaha Police Department for his comments and evidence from the city. Council members may ask questions at that point too if they wish. And then we'll give the applicant time to cross-examine any of those persons that have testified in opposition to the license should they desire, and provide any rebuttal evidence they may wish to provide at that point. The hearing will then be closed, and then the council members can ask questions if they wish or choose to motion their desire on the application. So we'll start with a presentation of the evidence by the applicant from the Throwback, please.
Thank you, Councilman. My name is Perry Persh, Persh Legal Services, and hopefully you all received an email from me which gave a status update prior to today.
And Perry, just your address too for the record?
Oh, my apologies. It's 24804 Country Club Road, Ashland, Nebraska, 68003.
Thank you.
The applicant, Throwback Arcade Lounge, has been in existence for some time. There was an incident last October 22nd when they received a tavern report. It was not their first one. However, I believe it was the first one in some time. It was an incident where a man who was visibly intoxicated had been denied entry at the Throwback Lounge. And following having been denied entry, he went a block away. There was some altercation, and he was found by Throwback Lounge security guards who were doing kind of a security sweep. There was some media coverage of it that was not accurate, and attempted to tie the assault to the lounge, is my understanding. And so it's also my understanding, because of that incident and because there had been prior tavern reports, that Throwback Lounge was asked to do a long form of its application. I would note, as I also set forward in the email, there is in fact a purchaser for Throwback Lounge, and the closing on the purchase agreement is set for July 31st. And so the liquor license in question would be for the lounge until the closing date. However, we would expect the new owners to get a temporary license and to continue the location, which was obviously designed for a lounge as far as fire codes and security. I do not believe, since the initial learning curves, that there has been any significant problems as far as public safety or security, public health, as a result of the lounge. And I would note that the lounge regularly, routinely employs off-duty Lincoln or Omaha police officers, 8 of them who provide security in conjunction with additional security guards. It is one of the few places, I believe, that use wands to metal test people as they come in for events. And it's my understanding that there has been no shootings or stabbings there, which unfortunately in the city, not all locations can boast. And so with me today is the majority interest holder and managing member of the lounge, Brianna, and she can tell you a little bit more about the measures that they've implemented since they started the lounge to try and meet and exceed the council's expectations as far as a business should be run.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Brianna Pham Carr, 8600. Oh, am I supposed to do Throwback's address or my address? The Throwback Arcade Lounge, 1402 Howard Street, Omaha, Nebraska 68102. I've been here before. Hi, nice to see you again. We've had this conversation before, I believe, but just to elaborate on what Perry said, we have been working with the city of Omaha since early 2021. We did have a strong learning curve in the beginning of opening in November of 2020. And we took a lot of advice. We've been working with the city hand in hand, hired off-duty officers. We have more security than we hear from our patrons anywhere else they've been before. They wear bright colored shirts so people know who they are, and people feel safe from what we experience and hear. As far as measures go that we've put in place outside of security, all of our employees take liquor training courses as well as I do. We have 2 managers that are there to oversee things as well. So as far as staffing goes, we're always fully staffed and heavy on security. We know we're in downtown Omaha. We know we're across the street from the police station, but we do everything that we can, to keep it safe. And I think that we've done a pretty good job, considering. If you look at the number of tavern reports, as I learned last time, the number of tavern reports is not as important as the number of disturbances that there have been. So I would just ask that you look into the specifics of each tavern report and take into consideration if there was any safety concerns, if there was anything that we had done inappropriately. because for the majority of them, we have not.
Okay. Does that conclude your remarks for now?
Yeah.
All right. Were you intending to speak too?
Yes, please.
Okay, go ahead.
Tony Pham, manager of Throwback, 1402 Howard Street, Omaha, Nebraska, 68102. I just have some things I'd like to read here. It's basically statements as to why we should be able to keep our liquor license as is. Our Omaha nightclub is facing the possibility of having our liquor license revoked. Here are 10 reasons the City Council should consider before their decision. Economic contribution. Throwback makes a significant contribution to the local economy by generating employment opportunities, tax revenue, and attracting patrons from both within and outside the city. Revoking the liquor license would negatively impact the overall economic growth of Omaha. Responsible alcohol service. We have a track record of responsible alcohol service. 0 alcohol-related violations in the 3 years that we've been open. Ensuring that patrons are of legal drinking age and implementing measures to prevent overconsumption. We consistently comply with the city's alcohol regulations, ensuring the safety and well-being of our customers. Community engagement. Throwback actively engages with the local community through various initiatives such as hosting charity events, fundraisers, and collaborating with local artists and musicians. Revoking the license will result in the loss of these community-oriented activities. Security measures. The nightclub maintains a robust security system to ensure the safety of our patrons. We have implemented strict security protocols, including trained personnel, surveillance systems, ID verifications, and reducing the likelihood of incidents and promoting a secure environment. Positive social environment. Our establishment fosters a positive social environment by providing a venue for people to socialize, celebrate special occasions, and enjoy music. Revoking the license would limit residents' entertainment options, potentially leading to illegal and unregulated gatherings. Employment opportunities. Throwback provides job opportunities for a significant number of individuals, such as bartenders, servers, security personnel, and other support staff. Revoking the liquor license would result in job losses, affecting the livelihoods of these employees and their families. Age verification protocols. We have a robust age verification protocol in place to prevent underage drinking. Our staff undergoes regular training and strict procedures are followed to ensure the only individuals of legal drinking age are served. Enhanced city image. Throwback has played a role in enhancing the Omaha's reputation as a vibrant and diverse city with thriving nightlife. Revoking the license could lead to a decline in the city's appeal, affecting tourism and overall perception. Responsible management. We have demonstrated responsible management practices by promptly addressing any issues that may arise, maintaining cleanliness and hygiene standards, and adhering to the fire and safety codes. Our commitment to responsible management should be considered as a positive factor. Cooperation with authorities. We have consistently cooperated with law enforcement agencies and local authorities, promptly addressing any concerns raised and maintaining open lines of communication. We even employ a large team of OPD officers willing to work for us. Our willingness to work hand in hand with the city should be acknowledged. These reasons highlight the positive contributions that Throwback makes to the local community, economy, and social fabric of Omaha. It is important for the city councils to recognize these factors when considering their decision on our liquor license.
Thank you. That concludes your opening remarks by the applicant, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Grauman, do you have any follow-up questions at this juncture? The floor is yours.
David Grauman, Assistant City Attorney, City Attorney's Office. Ms. Famcar, I'd like to start with you, please. I just handed your attorney some exhibits. I will let you look at mine. Would you please refer to Exhibit 18 and identify that for us?
Can you move that microphone up a little bit too, just so we can hear you? Yeah, there you go.
Better?
Yep.
Just read it.
Just identify what it is for me. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, licensees' representations on future license operation.
Thank you. And do you recognize that document?
Honestly, no.
Okay. Will you turn to page 3 for me?
Okay.
Is that your signature?
It is.
Okay. You do not recall entering into this agreement or stipulation with the city?
I'm not saying that. This was from 2021. Just looking at it, right here in this moment, I didn't recognize it, but that is my signature, yes.
Okay. Do you recall the reasons behind why you entered into that agreement with the city?
I believe it was because we had a lot of tavern reports when we first opened.
Okay.
And so the city council asked us to work with the city of Omaha, or the liquor commission maybe did.
And was that to reduce the number of incidents that the Throwback Lounge had?
Yes.
Okay. Do you recall if that was effective in reducing the number of tavern reports and other incidents you had?
I believe it was, yeah.
Okay.
If you took, months over a number of incidents, yeah.
Okay. And then following the expiration of that agreement, are you aware of whether the tavern reports and incidents involving the Throwback Lounge increased again or not?
I didn't know this expired.
Okay. Yeah.
I thought it was ongoing.
Okay. It actually expired at the expiration of that term of your license.
Oh, okay.
Which obviously you have to renew.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Secondly, you mentioned when you were up testifying earlier that you have a pending sale for July 31st, 2023?
Yeah.
Okay. Have you had other potential pending sales on the property?
We've had 2.
Okay.
Unfortunately, they both fell through because they were unable to obtain financing.
In both cases?
Mhm.
Has the financing been secured for this latest purchaser?
We have spoken with our broker, and our broker has confirmed that they're going to be able to get an SBA loan and that they are going to be able to qualify. I mean, it's not like 100%, but it's been pre-qualified, I guess.
And when will you know if that's official?
I don't know.
At closing?
Probably, yeah.
Okay. I don't have any other questions for you. I would like
Okay.
to speak to Mr. Famcar. Good afternoon, sir.
Hello.
You indicated that you have cooperated with law enforcement. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Were you aware that on 3/9/21 as well as 4/4/21, law enforcement was refused access to the property?
Yes, I do remember that, and there is a very solid explanation for that, but no one's ever willing to listen to it.
Okay.
So when we first opened up, the club was very popular, as you can imagine, and it's always very packed. If you think logically about how it works out, when the club is packed shoulder to shoulder, and say officers come up there, we had a protocol in place where if we let officers just walk in there aimlessly looking for a manager to speak to, they would be lost the entire night and wouldn't know where to go or who to look for. Our security team wears high-end earpieces and radios. And so the protocol that we put in place was basically call up a manager to greet the officers to walk them in. And that is what they did. But apparently we took too long, which was only a few minutes. And by doing that, they defined that as, delay of entry. And we've been dealing with that ever since. But since being in trouble for that stuff, we have changed our policies to basically just let the officers walk in and do whatever they want. And we've never had an issue since those incidents 2 years ago.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Those are all the questions I have at this time, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you. Council members, any questions at this point? Okay, seeing none. We'll now move to those who might be here to provide testimony in favor of renewing the license. Anyone, please come down.
At the same time?
Give me a sense of who all wants to speak. Okay, we got about 4 or 5. Just come down one at a time, but be ready after each person's remarks, if you would. And then it's your name and address for the record.
Hi there, everybody. My name is Jason Gardner. My address is 8128 South 94th Street in La Vista. I just wanted to say that, my wife and I, we have a family of 7 children, and when we go out in the evenings or we get some time to get out, we like to go to safe, clean places where we can enjoy an adult night out. And we have found that Throwback is a very nice, clean place. We've been going there since they opened. We tend to go to their New Year's event, which is very lively, very entertaining, and it's just a very safe, clean environment we find. We're very happy going there. It's a good time. It's a good way for us to get out into the city when we have a chance and enjoy the city excitement. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next testifier, please.
Hello. Hi. My name is Femi. I grew up in Omaha. I moved to Vegas about 10 years ago.
And your address too, and your last name?
210 South 16th Street.
Okay.
Olufemi Ban was my full name.
Okay.
And that's it. Can I go on?
Yeah, thank you.
So I moved back to Omaha right after COVID. And Throwback is the only place that I like since I've been back. Security seemed fine to me. This is new. Someone told me they had a liquor license. Damn, I'm gonna show up. I've never been in this setting before, so it's kind of interesting. I didn't realize it was this serious. So, hi. I love the place. I actually met a lot of those guys there. This is kind of weird when I walk in and I saw them, but I sit with them. So, I love the place. I don't want it to close. So, don't close it.
Great. Thank you.
Cool. Excellent.
Thanks for being here. Next testifier.
Hello, my name's Jacob Norman, address 770 North 4th Street, Springfield, Nebraska, 68059. I am also a bar owner of the Blind Pig in Springfield on Main Street. My wife and I frequent Throwback Lounge for a lot of different reasons. I've been in the hospitality industry for 18 years. I have managed other nightclubs in downtown Omaha. I have worked and bartended in the area. Throwback is a very well put together business. Their safety measures and protocols they put in place are second to none to what I've experienced at other venues. I have never once in all of my trips there felt that I was in harm's way or felt unsafe, whether I was outside, inside, or upstairs enjoying a cigar on the lounge. We enjoy that type of environment because it's the only place like it here in Omaha. It's one of a kind, and we would love to see it continue. And regardless of who owns it, we'd love to see it continue and thrive to support the community.
Okay, thank you. Next testifier.
Hello, everybody. My name is Weldon Smith Jr., and I live at 3505 North 113th here in Omaha, 68164, I believe. I work the door at Throwback 2 or 3 times a month, and I'm really, really impressed with what they've done there. And I'm even more impressed with like the security and things like that. If we ever have an issue with the door, which is, pretty rare, maybe somebody forgot something or whatever, literally just raise my hand and 3 people will run over there in just a second to take care of any issues that I might have. Again, I'm a little older than most of the people that are there, and I feel very, very comfortable there. And the people coming in and out really enjoy being there. Even when they're leaving there, they're not stumbling out, and they're all waving and having fun. It's a really, really great environment. And I myself with my wife, we go there, periodically. It's a really enjoyable place, and it would be really sad for it to go away. So I hope that you guys take that into consideration. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next proponent.
Hello, I'm also new to this. Jose Avalos. I myself frequent there along with everything that everyone else has said. I'd like
And
to
Jose,
tag
your
along on that.
address for the record?
16685 Washington Street.
Thank you.
I'm also a business owner. I have a couple businesses of myself, grocery store and whatnot. And then I've also been in the business. I've managed restaurants and bars for over 23 years. And I gotta say, it's one of the best places that I've seen when it comes to cleanliness, security and whatnot. My wife and I frequent there Friday nights for Latino night. I wasn't worried about the tavern stuff that you guys said, but news to me because every time we're there, we feel very safe, comfortable. It's actually one of the only Latino clubs we go to because of that reason. Most of them you go to, there's fights, you can't enjoy, there's problems. And there it's just calm, easy. We have a good time. We've never had issues. Everyone's very professional. Security is on point. So it's one of the places that I'd love to keep around, whether they own it or whoever owns it for that reason. Because we don't go out much, obviously, but when we do, we tend to go there at least once or twice a month, and it's definitely a good time and feel safe.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Other proponents?
Good afternoon, folks. Mr. President, my name is Sunshine, 19371 W Street. I've been a patron from Throwback Arcade Lounge since they opened. During the pandemic, the measurements that they took during COVID was bar none one of the best. Moving forward to even today's standards, their security measurements, they know me by face already. They still pat me down, want me to this day. It's very clean. I don't go out too often, but when we do, me and my fiance, we tend to go downtown. It's literally changed the dynamic of downtown and how I see things. I don't go anywhere else, any other establishments in downtown besides Throwback, and I don't want that to change. Thank you.
Thank you. Other proponents today?
Hello, Mr. President. Ben Navarro, address 20462 Boulder Street, Gretna, Nebraska, 68028. I've been going to Throwback since they've opened. We go maybe once a quarter just because the drive's a little far and hard to get an Uber all the way back to Gretna, but it's always been clean, always been a nice establishment. It's got that 80s, 90s nostalgia with Transformers and all the stuff I kind of grew up watching, so it's all over the walls. It's just something different for the community. I've never seen any issues there personally. I've always felt safe. My fiance's here as well. We go, we frequent. It's not necessarily the super young crowd because we're a little older, so we like going there where there's a good mix and a good vibe. So we'd like to see it continue to stay open as well.
Great, thank you. Other proponents? I think we have one more, is that right? Two more? All right.
Hi, my name is Yanira Rivera, 20462 Boulder Street, Gretna, Nebraska, 68028. I have also been frequenting Throwback since it's opened, and as a female, I can say that I feel very safe going there with myself, my friends, unlike other places downtown or around town. This establishment, like I said, is extremely safe. They take great measures at the door, and I've never felt myself in any type of danger while being there. This place is great. Not only is it well known in people from Omaha, but I'm from out of town, and whenever I have friends and family coming into town, they always say, "Take me to Throwback. Take me to Throwback. It looks super cool. It's super different. Something very unique for Omaha." So everybody enjoys going there.
Great. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Michael Johnson, 5657 South 209th Circle, Omaha, Nebraska, 68022. I wanted to go last. I think I'm last because didn't want to go over what everybody else had gone over, but I wanted to identify anything that I thought was not covered. A couple things that I'd say that were not covered. From my perception as a patron, going there probably at least once a month. As people said, it's a little bit unique as far as the bars in Omaha, much less downtown. And I've noticed significant changes inside the club other than security, other than these other things, to try to steer things in a particular direction to safety. Dress codes that were put in place. I think dress codes can have a significant impact on clientele that attends the bar. I think with sorry, a little nervous.
You're doing fine.
Not a public speaker. With the dress codes and changing the music, I've noticed over the course of the years that have been going there, the music has changed on different nights. Different nights would do different things, and I feel like some of those things were measures to try to control the narrative, to try to keep the right elements to be profitable, but still be safe. I've never seen any kind of significant incident that you wouldn't see anywhere else at any other establishment that serves alcohol, including restaurants, in the time that I've been there. I have, however, seen lots of disturbances just in Omaha. I was actually at the club this weekend. There was a shooting down the street. Had nothing to do with Throwback from my perspective. Don't think any of those clientele were in there that night. There wasn't much clientele in there that night because of College World Series. But there was a lot going on in the old market area, and that there was the shooting, and I don't know if anybody was shot. I just know everything was shut down. So I think part of the problem that exists, with Throwback and the tavern reports, is the location. I think that if we were talking about a West Omaha bar that was, zoned with not commercial, industrial, and residential right next door, there wouldn't be there wouldn't be as many tavern reports. There wouldn't be as many whatever these things are that have been strikes against the bar. I think it's a property of the environment. I think they've done, from what I could see, a lot of things to try to control what's going on outside the bar. They've already secured what's going on inside the bar. There hasn't been problems that I've heard so far as what's going on inside the bar. And you can only control so much of what's going on outside. I mean, they can't have security for the whole, city block, I guess, to control what happens, 50 feet, 100 feet, 500 feet away from the bar. So, things that were brought up, complaints from residents in the area. I think, if you live downtown, there's a reasonable expectation that you're going to have either commercial or industrial disturbances. If you live above a bar or next to a bar, there's going to be things like that, happen. I don't live downtown for that reason. I've got young kids, and I don't want disturbances throughout the night. But people may choose to live in that environment, and I think if they have problems in that environment, I think there's no music playing outside of the bar, and I think the security disperses crowds both during and after hours to try to minimize on the negative impacts of noise primarily outside of the bar. So I think from my perspective, there's not much any bar at that location could do. They moved next to the police station, right? They chose downtown because the allure of downtown, and I think more could be done maybe for the old market from a safety and security standpoint, to maybe improve the overall surrounding areas. I don't think it's necessarily the bars. It could be what happens outside of the bars, right?
Okay.
You can't control what somebody does, outside of the purview, right? The city council's got firsthand knowledge of not being able to control what's happening outside of the city's purview.
Okay.
So that's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate it. Any other proponents of the license? I think we covered all those that raised their hands. Okay. Mr. Gramman, do you have any follow-up questions at this stage? Okay, thank you. Council members, any questions at this stage? Seeing none, we'll now move to anyone here that wants to testify in opposition to the license. Anyone in opposition that wants to speak? Okay, please come up.
Hello, thank you. My name is Bob Hedrick. I live at 1308 Jackson Street, Suite 505, Omaha, Nebraska, so 68102. I am here as a resident of less than a block away, I guess, from the Throwback Lounge. J Lofts, both as a resident, and I'm also the treasurer of the Homeowners Association. There are 49 residential condominiums in our building and 2 commercial spaces. I believe we've provided you with a letter in opposition before this, but I'm here just to address some of the things we've heard. The old market is both a residential community and a business community, and it's kind of the beating heart of our entertainment district, and that is really important that we maintain some kind of a balance between those. Okay, the businesses need the residents there, so you know, and the entertainment needs the businesses there. It's a fine balance. I've lived in the building, my wife and I have, since 2017. Our unit actually, if you go out on our balconies, we have direct line of sight to the Throwback Lounge with nothing between us but a parking lot. Multiple times we've had noise violations. We've called called them, asked them to turn their outside music down. They do play music outside. We've ended up having to report things to the police, noise disturbances. Downtown does maintain a noise code, and I believe it's 11 on weekends. We've seen lots of violent acts outside the doors of our actual condominium, in the parking lots. 2 recent ones, I think it was last summer, we saw a group of 5-on-5 in the parking lot across the street. They were all direct people that had just left Throwback Lounge. Police responded. Police respond regularly to the Throwback Lounge. Recently, as April 2nd of this year, there was a significant event. I am not privy to the details of that event, but I know roads were closed, helicopter was in the air, and this was from patrons of the Throwback Lounge. I was actually out trying to pick up some dinner for my wife, so this wasn't late at night. This was evening time, and I was unable to return for a period of time with that food because the roads were closed, because there was something going on at the Throwback Lounge again. As a resident downtown, I don't feel safe walking past the Throwback Lounge, probably after the hours of 10 o'clock. We've seen a variety of different activities that are concerning. They stand in the street. The residents, they come and go. They jaywalk a lot. You know, you're driving down 14th Street and they just walk through. I don't know if it's because they're intoxicated or they're just not following the rules. I've seen public sex in the streets on 14th Street from people that have just left the Throwback Lounge. They say they can't control the area, but these are things that concern me. Especially public sex and violence really concerns me. Especially the old market. Old market, especially with the Jane Leahy Mall, is becoming more of a children and family venue. And this violence that happened back on April 2nd was during the day. Was during daytime hours. We just have lots of concerns. I think we've voiced them in our writing. When a neighbor is not a good neighbor anymore, I think we need to take a look at, all of our options when it comes to what's best for the community, the neighborhood as a whole. And we would voice our opposition to the Throwback Lounge getting a renewed license.
Okay, thank you. Not at this point. Are there any other opponents that want to speak? Please come down. And can I see a show of hands of how many other opponents want to speak? Okay, 2 more. Go ahead.
My name is Krista Kraling. I live at 7722 North 107th Avenue. I manage 1308 Jackson, J-Lofts. I've been there for about 4 years, so before the Throwback was there. I have received numerous complaints from my residents regarding noise, personal safety, from the beginning of them being there. I have never received any other personal safety complaints from any other business. And it is true that they are downtown, and so they are used to a certain level of noise. We hear fire trucks, we hear trash trucks, we hear the Macs pour out on Thursday and Friday, but nothing compared to the blaring that we've particularly heard at the beginning of Throwback and most recently in April. So with that being the major concern, we have several residents that came here today because of the safety issue. So just wanted to put that in.
Thank you. Next opponent. I think that's you, Holly.
Hello, Holly Barrett, 1620 Dodge Street, Suite 140. I'm the Executive Director of the Omaha Downtown Improvement District. We were so excited when Throwback opened. It was such a unique concept and a lot of fun. And then when the rooftop lounge went in, I was even more excited because it's not something that we have down here. They are really, really wonderful, and they were uniquely situated to be able to do it in that their location, while they're surrounded by residents, they don't have a lot of other issues going on. They've got a lot of parking right there. It seemed like it was going to be the great place. Unfortunately, since that time, we have received nothing but complaints, noise violations, and absolutely all the work that they have done on the inside has made it a really great experience inside. It's the outside that the neighborhood is really worried about. And it is things that are happening right there within that front door. We even around the back, which is obviously not in front of the door, but we are seeing patrons that are parking in the private parking lot and getting really belligerent. There's no signs anywhere that say that they can't park there or warning their patrons that they can't park there. There are a couple of other things that they could do that would help that situation. But honestly, at this point, what we worry about is the noise and the fact that there are so many times, so many calls from the police to go to the business that they are actually a standing item agenda on our security committee meeting every single month, just asking the police who are in attendance with our meeting what's going on and are you seeing any incidents. The incident that everybody is talking about in April was pretty bad. It was 3 o'clock in the afternoon. They did close the streets down. It was right outside their door. And it was after the process of the sale had already been started. So we were very hopeful that once the sale was going to start that we were going to be able to see a little bit more good neighbor behavior. It's just been a very, very difficult relationship. And again, it's a fabulous business on the inside, but their rapport with the outside neighborhood has not been good. So my organization, my board, and my security committee would at this time like to see their license revoked, sadly. So thank you.
Thank you. I believe that's the last opponent in attendance to speak today. Mr. Persh, would you like to cross-examine or have any questions of the opponents?
I will save it for rebuttal.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Grauman, any questions at this point? Council members? Next, we'll have the police department. Okay, thank you. All right, seeing none, we'll next ask Sergeant Mraz to come to the microphone to provide evidence on behalf of the city.
Good afternoon. Excuse me. I have, I believe, 16 exhibits that I was given tavern reports over the last couple of years. That I'm going to
Sergeant,
go
just for
through.
the record, could you give your name and address too?
Yes, absolutely. Joe Mraz. I'm employed as a sergeant with the City of Omaha Police Department, 505 South 15th Street. These are all tavern reports regarding Throwback. This is February 5th, 2021 at 0104 hours. Officers were dispatched to a large fight of 10 to 15 people in front of the Throwback Lounge. Officers observed a party out cold in the breezeway. Security officers on scene said they had passed out at the bar, so they were taking her outside when they realized she was unconscious. 21st of February at 11:54 p.m. Omaha Police responded to Throwback for a disturbance. Officers made contact with the reporting party who stated the suspect was harassing her and intimidating her. Officers then spoke with the Throwback Lounge security personnel and business management at the front door before entering the bar to locate the suspect. The business representatives at the front door requested officers to wait to speak to the owner before entering the business. February 28th of 21 at 7:39 p.m. Officers responded to a crowd disturbance. Several parties, approximately 30 to 40, were observed yelling obscenities as they exited the bar. An assault report was completed after a woman reported she was punched by a male inside of the bar. When officers requested the liquor license, the manager was uncooperative when she reported that the manager told her not to allow police inside and stated she wanted for them to wait outside. March 12th of 21 at midnight 36. Officers were dispatched to a disturbance. They arrested a party for domestic assault on the victim, who had 2 swollen injuries to her face and claimed she was assaulted inside of the bar. The officers were attempting to transport the suspect. He walked up to the cruiser and kicked it in the right side of the passenger door. More officers were called. After they arrived, there were still several disturbances going on. They also observed a couple patrons walk out of the bar with open containers. Sergeant Baker responded to the scene and spoke with security. They attempted to stop Sergeant Baker from entry and said they would send someone out to talk to her outside. When she went inside anyway and spoke with staff, they immediately smelled marijuana and addressed it with one of the staff members, who said that is why he shut the place down early. Excuse me. They also stated they have 10 to 12 security officers working and still could not control the crowd. April 4th of 21 at 1 a.m., officers observed a disturbance in front of the Throwback. They heard yelling and shouting coming from the Throwback arcade and observed several security personnel ejecting a large group of combative patrons. As officers approached the entrance to the bar, officers observed people pushing and shoving one another as security personnel forced many people outside. They observed one security guard forcefully body slam someone on the concrete. April 12th of 21. Officers were called there regarding an assault. They made contact with the manager, who reported that the front 2 glass doors of the business had been damaged by a male that became upset with staff after not being allowed to leave the establishment with his alcoholic beverage. October 2nd of 21. Officers were advised by a passerby that a fight was occurring at the Throwback Lounge. A large crowd disturbance was occurring and multiple people were scattering. Officers spoke with staff, who stated a fight had just occurred just outside the entry doors between multiple people, with security staff being struck and having to use force to disperse the agitators. One of the reporting parties stated they had a patron who was causing a disturbance inside the establishment, and they were in the process of removing the said individual. 9th of October 2021 at 1 a.m. Officers observed a party that was thrown out and was yelling and arguing with off-duty officers. The party was yelling in the street before leaving. Shortly after, security chased a party down the street who stole a menu. October 17th of 21 at 1:16 a.m., officers were called. A call came out that 4 people were fighting outside the Throwback, and a radio could not reach the off-duty officers. They were not answering their radios. They were just across the street and ran to the disturbance. There appeared to be at least 75 people standing immediately in front of the entrance to Throwback. Officers pushed their way through the incredibly uncooperative crowd who was surrounding off-duty officers. As the officers began to push the crowd back, two separate people slammed the officers' arms down and would not leave because there were so many people and it was chaotic. The officers were unable to make an arrest in that particular case. As other officers arrived on scene and pulled up, there was a fight in the front door. They broke up the fight and tried to help clear out the sidewalk. One of the off-duty officers said there was a fight inside of the bar and he was attempting to clear out the crowd. He made several announcements that he was a police officer when suddenly he was punched in the face 2 times with a closed fist. His face had redness and swelling around his eyes. March 20th of 22, officers were called to Throwback for a disturbance over a tow truck driver who stated he was assaulted and his keys were taken out of the ignition of his tow truck during the disturbance. Officers approached staff at Throwback and requested to speak with a supervisor. Initial staff at the door informed officers wait outside, at which point the sergeant arrived on scene and advised them that they were going inside. July 23rd of 22 at 1:17 a.m., a large crowd coming from outside of the Throwback Lounge. Officers observed a crowd coming out from the Throwback Lounge. They were kicking people out early because it was so crowded, and a couple different gangs were inside. They were overwhelmed by the number of people standing in the front of Throwback, so they started to move into the streets, and a disturbance broke out. When more officers arrived, the crowd started to disperse in several different directions. Part of the crowd moving north, where 2 females began to fight. They were quickly detained, but officers were surrounded by the crowd, and a couple people interfered with the arrest. September 24 of 22 at 1:05 a.m., Throwback security personnel said he was ejecting a patron for causing a disturbance, and in the process of escorting her out of the bar, she grabbed a hold of his hair and pulled some of his hair out of his head. The suspect appeared to be under the influence of alcohol. October 16th of 22 at 1 a.m., officers were dispatched for an assault to Throwback. They spoke with security staff who stated the male was standing on the northwest corner of 14th and Howard Street and got into a verbal altercation with a group of men. The group of men physically assaulted the male, rendering him unconscious. January 8th of 23 at 1:56 a.m., officers were dispatched to a disturbance at Throwback. Security had escorted suspect out of the bar due to him causing a disturbance and attempted to re-enter the bar. When security would not let him enter, he hit the door and forced it to swing violently into another guest's face. This caused a visible injury to her nose, which appeared to now be broken. February 18th of 23 at 1:44 a.m., officers were dispatched to a disturbance and a large crowd outside the establishment. There were multiple loud arguments within the crowd, and a fight broke out between 3 patrons to the north along the sidewalk at the edge of the establishment. Pepper balls were deployed, and the fight was broken up. April 2nd of 2023 at 6:25 p.m., a large fight disturbance occurred at Throwback Lounge. Throwback security deployed pepper spray to disperse the crowd, but 2 individuals continued to actively fight. Traffic was temporarily blocked southbound on 14th Street in both directions on Howard Street until the crowd was cleared. During the apprehension, an off-duty officer was inadvertently sprayed in the face with pepper spray by security personnel, and a gang unit detective punctured his hand on a taser probe. Those are the 16 exhibits that I have.
Okay. Thank you, Sergeant. Mr. Grauman, any follow-up questions at this point?
David Grauman, City Attorney's Office. Good afternoon, Sergeant.
Good afternoon.
In your professional opinion, has there been an improvement in the pattern of disturbances at Throwback Lounge over the last 2 to 3 years?
I've noticed them come in and go in waves.
Okay. And most recently, is it trending in the direction of more disturbances or less disturbances?
For a while there were more. I left that unit in February, so I can't speak to the most recent months.
Okay. And am I correct in presuming there's a finite amount of police allocation that can be put in any one area of the old market or downtown region?
Correct.
And does OPD have to station or dedicate additional resources because of Throwback Lounge and the issues that have been that have occurred there over the last few years?
When I was down there, I specifically allocated officers to the southeast corner to keep an eye specifically on Throwback. Sometimes it was one or two officers, sometimes it was more, and sometimes there were gang units and unmarked cars who were also watching.
Okay. And how would that compare with other establishments in the area that serve alcohol?
We generally provide an area to cover so that we just pass through and make an appearance, make sure everything's going fine. We don't have to dedicate resources to a specific location.
Okay. Mr. Pham testified earlier as to the refusals of entry of police officers into the establishment. Do you recall his testimony?
I do.
Would you agree with his explanation of those refusals?
That is a possibility.
Okay. As part of your review in preparation for this hearing, were you made aware of complaints that were lodged by associations, community groups, and neighbors regarding the Throwback Lounge?
Yes, I was.
And Exhibit 17 that you reviewed in preparation for this hearing, is that an accurate representation of those complaints?
Yes.
Okay. That's all the questions I have at this time, Mr. President.
Okay. Thank you. Council members, any questions at this juncture? Ms. Johnson, you're recognized.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to clarify, I'm noticing that in 2021, there were a total of 9 occurrences. Is that correct?
Yes, that's what I have.
I also noticed that there were a total of 4 occurrences in 2022.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
And then 3 this year, 2023. Is that correct?
Correct.
So looking at this information, it seems as though from 2021 to current day, there's been a decline in the number of occurrences. Can you offer any explanation as to why there's a decrease?
I don't have an exact reason. I know that we are dedicating more resources to that area, or at least we were while I was patrolling that area. So we were nearby very, very often.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. See no other questions at this juncture. We'll allow the applicant, if you'd like to cross-examine, or else you can move right into your rebuttal.
If you don't mind, I'd like to ask the officer a few questions.
Yes, you may.
Officer, forgive me. How long have you been dealing with alcohol enforcement for the city of Omaha?
I've been employed with them for over 18 years, and as a sergeant, I was over Riverfront for the last 4 years, up until February.
Okay. And you highlighted the tavern reports as they apply to the Throwback Arcade Lounge. Is it fair to say that some of the tavern reports appear to be generated by the Throwback Arcade Lounge trying to comply with liquor laws?
That may be a possibility. A lot of them were just observations from officers who were down there.
Well, for example, you mentioned somebody had been body slammed. I believe they were body slammed by security, right?
Correct.
Have you ever body slammed somebody to put the cuffs on them in the scope of your employment?
That's a possibility.
Okay. I don't recall reading, and in fact it was my statement at the beginning that there hasn't been any stabbings or shootings at the Throwback Arcade Lounge. Is that accurate?
That sounds accurate.
So, are the are the types of problems that were highlighted in the tavern reports the types of problems that you see for bars all over the city of Omaha in tavern reports?
I would say this one specifically deals generally with larger crowds that are disruptive.
Okay. And earlier we heard testimony that Throwback Arcade Lounge had actually been working with the city of Omaha to deny certain DJs, certain acts from performing at the Throwback Arcade Lounge. Do you know whether or not this was an attempt by Throwback Arcade Lounge to mitigate against some of the problems that they saw with those groups?
It would appear they did for a time, and then it would pick up again after that agreement had expired.
Do you know now if there are certain DJs, certain types of music or performers that Throwback Arcade Lounge will not allow to perform there based on the request of law enforcement in the city?
I'm not aware.
It was stated that there was music outside the Throwback Arcade Lounge. Do you recall if that was your experience?
I was not present for that on that particular day.
Okay. There wasn't a tavern report citing them for playing music, correct?
I'm not aware. I can tell you that I was tasked with contacting the owners regarding that, but I was not there for that.
Thank you. And you may recall earlier that I spoke about an October 22nd or October 16th incident of 2022 whereby a man reported or was found assaulted about a block away from the Throwback Arcade Lounge. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know, was he permitted entry into the Throwback Arcade Lounge on that date?
I believe he was denied, according to the tavern report.
Okay. And so in that sense, they did exactly what they're supposed to do, correct?
Correct.
But they still get a tavern report?
Correct.
Okay. Now, since then, there's been 3 other tavern reports that I see. January 8th, February 18th, and April 2nd. Would it surprise you if the owners of Throwback Arcade Lounge testified that they had never received notice that a tavern report had been made?
I wouldn't know at that point because I don't personally contact them, so I don't know who would have contacted them.
Do you know what the standard operating procedure is when a tavern report is done so that they can notify the owners and they can take remedial action as appropriate?
Right. My officers are instructed to advise them that a tavern report was completed.
Is this the type of thing gets documented anywhere?
If it was in a tavern report, are you talking about?
As far as how the owners of places are put on notice then so they can take remedial action?
All that I know is that my officers are instructed to advise a staff member, whether it's security, the off-duty officers, or even a manager, that a tavern report's being completed.
Did you testify that Throwback Arcade Lounge had more complaints than some other entities in the vicinity in the old market?
I may have testified that they have more attention from us. I don't know about more complaints necessarily.
Okay. Well, and that was my question is, why are they getting more attention from the Omaha Police Department?
Because there are lots of disruptive crowds that form at bar close.
Okay. Could you characterize the disruptive crowds as coming from a type of event or types of event?
A type of event at the Throwback?
Yes.
I would just say in general at bar close, when everybody floods out of the front doors, they're loud and disruptive, spill into the streets, fights occur. there was a lot of arguing and screaming in the early hours.
And is your testimony then that's unique to Throwback Arcade Lounge and not to the other bars?
It's more common with the Throwback.
To what do you attribute it?
I don't know. There's just large crowds that come out. They're intoxicated, presumably.
Have you been inside Throwback Arcade Lounge?
I have.
And you're familiar with the decor?
I am.
You have seen the poster of Ms. Edna Garrett on the wall?
I'm not familiar with her.
Oh. Well, see, for somebody who grew up in the 70s and 80s, she was on Different Strokes, and then she got a spin-off called The Facts of Life. Are you familiar with those shows?
I actually am.
Okay. Anything about Edna Garrett or Transformers?
Maybe Transformers. Not completely familiar, though. I mean, it's been a while since I was in there, too.
Okay. We have just 1 second. You testified that you are, I guess, no longer in charge of a unit that was responsible for overseeing and noting in tavern reports incidents in bars?
Correct. I mean, not the riverfront unit specifically, that is.
Okay. And when did that happen? When did your oversight on that particular unit end?
It would have been at shift change, which was the end of February, early March of this year.
Okay. Do you know, while you were still actively involved, what sort of dialogue communications were done to work with the owners of the Throwback Arcade Lounge?
I know there were agreements that were signed into place. I believe I was present for one of them early on,
Okay.
and phone calls that I've had with them.
Do you know whether or not Throwback Arcade Lounge was still following the agreements?
I do not know, and it's been a while since I've reviewed what the agreements are.
I have nothing further, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Perch, thank you, Sergeant.
Yes.
Mr. Perch, are there any other opponents you'd like to cross-examine, or would you like to move into your rebuttal?
I think we prefer to move into the rebuttal for
Okay.
brevity.
Thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Councilman. You've been generous with your time tonight. We sincerely appreciate it. I was a native Omaha, and as I noted, I grew up in the 70s, 80s, graduated in 1990, and I was absolutely thrilled when I stumbled into Throwback Lounge for the first time. It was a wave of nostalgia on me, and how Different Strokes and Love Boat and Dukes of Hazzard and these types of television shows that many of us grew up with could be a source of contention. It really surprised me. Any time that we have urban gentrification, which is overall a very good thing, we see conflict. And I know that I've appeared before you all previously in cases where new condos have gone in next to established liquor store, for example. But to characterize the tavern reports, initially there was a learning curve, and the owners would be the first to admit that they made some mistakes, and they took some bad advice, but they really have tried to actively work with the city to correct it and accommodate for it. Since that time, I don't know that any bar in town is not going to have incidents where patrons tried to leave with the menu, for example, it was cited today, or patrons tried to leave with alcoholic drinks, or patrons try and park in a private parking lot next door, or patrons zealously object to not being allowed to come in. But that is the price we pay to some extent for having liquor license in a heavy regulated industry. And if you know your history in Prohibition, it was far worse previously. But I think that the owners of the Throwback Arcade Lounge have demonstrated their sincere willingness to try and work with the city and cooperate. It came as an absolute shock to us that there in fact had been any tavern reports from 2023 because they weren't made aware of it. There was a discussion today about the Downtown Neighborhood Association having Throwback Arcade Lounge part of their regular monthly meeting security discussion. Well, had I been advising that nonprofit, I would have said, why don't you reach out to the Throwback Arcade Lounge and invite them in to come and speak? I'm sure they'd be more than willing to put a sign up on their door that says, don't park in this private parking lot. But being good neighbors is a two-way street, and a lot of the people who I think express their concerns today are going to have problems with anybody who comes in to fill that spot. That building was designed to be a lounge, and it is zoned to be a lounge. And unfortunately, sometimes people get loud and boisterous with alcohol and make bad decisions. I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. I think that the filling out of the long-form liquor license showed a sincere desire on their part to try and meet and address concerns, which they will continue to do. This process in the lounge has taken a pretty significant, severe impact on my clients and the quality of life that they've had and their marriage. And for that reason, they are getting out. But I still think that the Throwback Lounge is a unique, incredible spot. And as long as they are willing to do what is necessary to work with the city and work with the police department and work with their neighbors, that they be given the opportunity to continue. So with that, I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Grauman, would you like to cross-examine?
David Grauman, City Attorney's Office. Ms. Bamcar, could I ask you a couple questions, please? Thank you. Your attorney indicated that you believed that the agreement from May 14th, 2021, which put the provisions in place limiting your activities at the Throwback Lounge, he indicated you believe that was still in place, correct?
I did too, yes.
And you did too, okay. Yeah. And so you're aware that outside promoters are prohibited by that agreement?
Yes, certain ones, right? Oh, most, yeah.
It does. It bans outside promoters pursuant to the terms of it.
Okay.
So I'm going to show you an exhibit. It is the last page of Exhibit 17. Are you familiar with this particular promoter?
From what I've been told, that is an actor, but yes, switch spots.
So you indicated that this.
I'm actually the one that did that, so can I answer the questions?
No issue.
Okay, they're just substituting speakers here. Go ahead.
My name is Tony Pham. I'd like to address the questions here from the attorney here. As far as this is concerned, yes, this is my event. I reached out to a promoter to help us promote, but this is our event. It's an actor that's just going to be showing up to host a party. I don't see anything wrong with this. Let's call it what it is. At the end of the day, those policies and rules that were imposed on us back in 2021 by the attorneys here, we had to keep that on the hush because we were being called racist because the things that they wanted us to do was strictly addressed towards the urban crowd. And our urban crowd is actually a really good urban crowd because it's older and they appreciate the better things and they're not really troublemakers. Now the only thing I see wrong with this is that the guy's black and he's on a black TV show.
Mr. Pham, can I continue my questions and I'll get to the point of this testimony?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. So again, to repeat my question that I asked Ms. Famcar, are you aware of this promoter and is he an outside promoter?
Well, it doesn't say anything. Where's the promoter? The promoter's name is Trey. I can't think of his last name right now, but I'm the one that called him out. So he's not a third-party promoter that brought this in. We bring in our own events, and promoter is the definition of somebody that goes out and helps advertise.
Okay, and you indicated earlier that this particular musician or performer is a TV actor?
Yes.
Okay.
And they won't be doing any performances. He's just going to be sitting there being looked at.
Are you aware of the fact that he has gang affiliations on both the East and West Coast?
But why would we do that type of research and care? Because he's a famous guy. And here, I would like to explain something. Nothing has happened yet. Back in last spring, we had a big event with a guy named I can't even think of his name, but it was promoted for two months. No one said anything. The police officers knew about it. And then a week before the show, we get mystery phone calls from the commission and police station saying, if you guys go through with this, we're going to take away your liquor license. No names were given. We were made that threat, and we cared about our business enough to where we didn't want to do that. So we canceled on him, and people were upset. We were being called out left and right. People were threatening lawsuits because we got this mystery call because this is a black performer. Why? Nothing has even happened yet, but yet we got punished for that. And I feel like that's the same thing right now. He's coming in here next month to sit there, and we're not having him perform. We have a strict dress code. We have off-duty police officers already agree to work for us. We have extra security. We have extra off-premise security working for us as well. So I'm not sure what your point is. Yes, I do know what this is about.
Okay. You indicated you've had other artists come in the past 2 years?
Yes.
How many would you, can you indicate how many have performed at the Throwback in the last 2 years?
No, I can't. 50 Cent was one. He came there because he came to Omaha because he was promoting his liquor. He came in as a guest, and out of nowhere he just started singing just a quick performance and sat down. Like he wasn't scheduled to perform or anything like that. He just wanted to sing a couple raps or something, but like that.
Did you have a musician perform in April of this year?
I can't recall. Can you tell me who that was?
No.
Then I couldn't tell you. I'm sorry.
And you can't identify the other performers or promoters you've worked with in the last 2 years?
We are a nightclub that have constant events and shows to keep the lights on. And we have to stay relevant. So I apologize that we can't recall at the top of my head all our performers or celebrity guests or even just theme events.
Are you aware of the fact that there have been, a number of the tavern reports and the incidents that have occurred outside of your establishment were related to, over the history of the establishment, the shows that have and the artists that have come through?
Well, I would really like better proof of that statement because, I mean, I think that's.
Agree with that?
I don't.
No further questions.
Okay, thank you. Council members, you may ask questions at this point as well, or else I can close the public hearing and then open it for council discussion and questions and anyone you might want to call up at that point. So any questions at this juncture? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. And now this is the portion of the meeting for council discussion. Ms. Melton, your light's on.
Thank you. I'm just wondering if Ms. Barrett would come back up. from the downtown neighborhood
Improvement
district. Thank you. Because there was some discussion, and I understand that you're down here on behalf of kind of the whole neighborhood. We received multiple emails in regards to this. And I think that perhaps in your position, there were many other businesses and neighbors down there that were expecting you to kind of speak on their behalf. So I heard some things about neighborhood meetings and that maybe you should have worked with the bar so that this wouldn't be a problem. I was wondering if you would be able to elaborate a little bit more on the things you've done and the things that you have heard from the people that you serve.
Absolutely. We did actually reach out on a number of occasions. In fact, my board chair, Dan Emanuel, who is currently our board chair emeritus, he shares a wall with them. And numerous phone calls it did not get responded to. And then he actually has walked in person in there a couple of times. Our security committee chair, Tim Malik, who works for First National Bank, has also attempted to get in touch with them. I also work closely with the Old Market Association. They have had a couple of folks. Again, we've got a lot of folks who are residents and business owners down here because it's a very mixed-use neighborhood. So a lot of these folks have a lot of crossover. But I can say that we were not able to get through when we were calling the bar. Your staff is very protective of you, which is fantastic. But it did mean that we did not feel like we were getting heard. And again, we did have a couple of people actually walk in person. Not during very, very busy hours, around the time when deliveries and things were being made. So there were people there, and they just didn't get any headway. So, and again, we have heard a lot about some really, really good business practices. 99% of the things that we would have talked about, they're already doing. I think it's just the continued noise that we're hearing from the bar. Both there is music going on beyond the right hours on the weekends. And again, it's the things that are happening right outside those front doors during those outcrowd hours. And I live a block away from there, and we absolutely, as residents, expect to see and hear things happening at 2 o'clock in the morning. That is one of the reasons why we live down here, is that we have access to bars and restaurants and theaters. This one is a little bit above and beyond. We have a lot of high volume bars in downtown, and we do see this behavior at every single one of them. This one seems to get a lot more attention, and we were part of the team that was really asking the police department to put some extra resources out there, and we did see that they were able to respond to things a lot faster. So there have been numerous occasions from either my organization, people within it, and with the other neighborhood associations around there, HOAs, the Old Market Association, and then our board chair and our security officers.
Well, and we have multiple bars in the downtown area. Can you estimate how many bars that you have in the downtown area? It's got to be
we probably have at least 30 right there within this epicenter of what we're talking about. And about 10 of them are what we consider high volume bars. And again, we do absolutely see these incidents at high volume bars. This is things that happen when you have a lot of people. It just seems that this one seems to be getting a lot more. Even some of our next worst friends have only had 12 tavern reports versus the 16 over the last 2 years. And again, those tavern reports are things that were actually things that were happening and being called on. There are a lot of little tiny incidents that happen that are not actually being turned into a tavern report because they are quelled quickly enough by either their good security or the police department responding. So, we see that there's a lot of hope for this. And again, we have always thought that I personally think it's a really fun place. I don't like the crowds that happen at 1 o'clock in the afternoon or 1 o'clock in the morning from some of the performances that have come out. They have just been not good crowds. They are not good neighbors. They come out, they abuse the neighborhood. We're seeing everything from drug use to urination to sex right there and within a block. So those are the reasons why our security team why our security committee has started paying a lot more attention to it, was that the rest of the neighborhood was calling us and saying that we had a problem.
Okay, and thank you. Nothing further for you.
Thank you. Mr. Bagley, you're recognized.
Thanks, Mr. President. In being on the law committee for 2 years with this establishment that sits in my district, I was aware prior to me being on the council of the issues that have been referenced here today. And listening to the testimony of both sides and getting numerous emails from, several were mentioned, from the Downtown Improvement District, the Old Market Neighborhood Association, multiple constituents of mine. In no particular order, I'll just read a few parts of the emails that I've gotten. This is from the April 2nd event of this year. The crowd spilled outside, forcing the police to close 14th Street and Howard Street until it could be cleared by multiple responding officers. There are 2 arrests made for disorderly conduct from this fight, but as the crowd moved into the Old Market, we had to use a lot of officers to continue to monitor the groups for several more hours to prevent additional problems. 4 minutes after that fight began, officers were called to a shots fired near 13th and Jackson, where 2 gang members ran and fought with our officers. They were in possession of an illegal firearm and arrested. In the letter that counsel for the throwback, they referenced at the end when they, in summation, the members of the throwback are still intending on selling the lounge. They respectfully request the liquor license be continued. Concerns generated by the tavern reports and malicious gossip have been addressed amicably. Any additional concerns brought forward by the city can be made better, tolerated earnestly. Well, looking at all these reports and hearing from even the testimony today, I forget who it was, I think one of them that testified lives down in this area, the rest, and we're glad to have people in the Old Market. We want it to be safe. We want people to enjoy themselves. But when people come down, not only that the gentleman, he said that he doesn't want to live downtown. I don't want disturbances throughout the night with a young family. Can certainly understand that. The people that I've heard from that have testified today, in addition to that, are people that live in the Old Market. People that go down there to enjoy themselves, and as the Omaha Police Department has said, the resources that have been put forth into this establishment to keep it safe, the problems are continuing. And as most people aren't living down in the Old Market that testified today, the tavern reports, the issues with public safety, even with the letter that the Old Market Neighborhood Association, they said in their letter, for the record, the owners and the managers of Throwback have never responded to an invitation to join as neighbors of the Old Market Association. They choose not to contribute, certainly their choice, but if you want to be good neighbors, if you care about the safety, you talked about the safety of people inside the Throwback. I'm glad that you're trying to do that, but I'm concerned about the safety of people that live down there and that go down there. We have the College World Series this weekend. And I guess my closing points, there's been no communication from your establishment that, as I research, to the Downtown Improvement District or the Old Market Neighborhood Association. And the thing that concerns me the most is I think it was 3 times as was indicated that you were going to sell your establishment. So on our law committee, when we hear that, well, we won't take any action to bring them in for a long form. And then we find out that they're not selling, and then you are, and then you aren't. It's like Charlie Brown when Lucy's holding the football, and Charlie Brown gives it that big swing, and the football gets pulled away. Well, that's how I feel being on the law committee for the last couple years and waiting, okay, you're gonna sell. Well, the football got pulled out again, and I'll speak for myself that I will not support this license recommendation due to the things that have been testified today that have provided to the council overwhelming that I've received and others on why that Lucy and the football here, I've just had it, and I don't feel that I can trust your word when you're saying these things to us, that's a reason that I would make a motion to deny this license today. Thank you, Mr. President.
There's a motion, a second to deny. Ms. Johnson, you're recognized.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I have to pause for a moment because all of the evidence that has been provided to us is saying that these events have taken place outside of the bar in the surrounding area. And also, we have a number of bars. So I'm concerned that should this liquor license be denied, I'm not so sure that that's going to solve the problem regarding the impact of the noise and other things that is disruptive to the area. Again, I'm seeing the evidence that I'm seeing here today. Granted, I don't have enough information, but in 2021, we had 9 occurrences. In 2022, 4. 2023, 3. I call for the question, why have these occurrences declined? Can someone shed some light on that? Can someone give some reasonable explanation as to why the numbers have decreased when we still have a problem? From what we're hearing from the neighbors, we're still having a problem, but why have these numbers dropped? And why haven't it been, it should be at least 9 or more like it was in 2021. Why is there a decline? I can't wrap my head around why there's a decline, because I would think that you would still have these number of tickets. Haven't gotten an answer for that. So maybe the law department or maybe the police can answer that question for me, because I still have some concerns about that.
If you'd like to call up a testifier, you may do that.
Yeah, well, we have a gentleman that was, the law department, not the law department, but the police department. The captain that no longer is in that area.
Sergeant Mraz?
Yeah,
Yep,
if
okay.
he can come up, I mean, he can talk to us about some of the things.
Sergeant Mraz again, the Southeast Precinct. Again, why the tavern reports have lessened when there are increased issues. I would say our presence is probably part of that, because we are very nearby. We're across the street. You can see the cruiser from the front door of Throwback is where they typically park, so that they have a good visual of the whole area. Another reason could be that we are very short-staffed. So even though when I was down there, I would assign an officer down there to be positioned there, there may not be an officer to position there on many nights. They might be short-staffed, and there might not be anybody to respond to disturbances that come out. A lot of times when disturbances come out, they're broken up by the time we get there, and there's nobody to arrest. We don't know what happened. Everyone's left already.
So do you think that by closing this establishment is going to take that element of disturbance out of the community?
I think it would contribute in the fact that we wouldn't have to delegate an officer to stay at that post, and when they can be patrolling in other areas and deterring crime in other areas instead of focusing on that. Also, when we do get called there, it tends to draw all of the officers who are working down there to deal with the crowds who are spilling into the streets. And again, sometimes there might not be a tavern report because we don't know what happened. We just see people flooding through the streets and everybody leaves. We don't have an incident to report. We just know that something had happened to cause everyone to spill out into the street. So that could be a reason why they're not documented, because we just didn't have any information to document.
So will this go to another area? I mean, to another club? I mean, isn't there a possibility that it will just spill over to the next club?
That is a possibility.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Rowe, you're recognized.
Question for the sergeant as well. So in your opinion, when your officers are stationed down there, it's clear to me that the people that are spilling into the streets are intoxicated. And that's a result of what?
From drinking at the
Drinking too
establishment.
much. So is that a true statement? I mean, what percentage of people that you see coming out at closing time would you say have had too much to drink?
I would say a good percentage, but without testing individual people, it's hard to know for a fact all of the circumstances.
Okay. I have a question for Mr. Pham. So having heard that, I mean, it seems to me that the responsibility that you have is to monitor the amount of alcohol that's being served to your customers. I think that's part of your job. And what kind of measures do you have in place to be sure that your clients aren't leaving there intoxicated to the point that they're getting into fights, that they're stumbling on the curb, they're falling down, and they're causing problems for the police?
Well, Councilman, first off, I have to address, spilling out into the street doesn't mean there's a fight or something. That means it's closing time. We ask everybody to leave. So that terminology is just left up for speculation. As far as, just as Officer Mraz here said, we don't know who's over intoxicated, but we do know because we train our staff very well. We make them take those it's called the affordable alcohol test or course. And so they all know what to recognize. They all come to us all the time, and the managers, and say, we're cutting this person off, and it's a team effort. No one person takes responsibility because that individual getting cut off would be mad at that person. So it's more of a team effort so the entire bar knows and no one else would serve that person. But we, honestly, the type of bar that we are, it's a fun, wholesome dancing and bright lights. It's not dark and seedy. I wish you would just step in there. You would get a good feeling what the bar is like. A lot of these accusations that we have, I wish I would rebut at the same time because it's very unfair, and I think it's just unjust and unwarranted what we're going through right now. So, but as far as the alcohol portion goes, yeah, we do take all the proper measures, and we will continue to do so, and even exceed that if asked to.
What percentage of your staff do you think are fully trained in that regard to identify a client that's
Well, when we hire them, we ask them to take the test. My wife and I just actually recently retook it ourselves. So I would like to say all of them, but some of them come from another place that we hired, and they're like, we already had the test, and it's good for another 2 years.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Milton.
Thank you. And Sergeant, I just had a couple questions while you were here. There's still Omaha Police Resources are literally, at least on the weekend nights, I think Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Omaha Police has to actually have police officers in that area for that particular bar. Is that right?
Correct. They've had several officers come in on overtime status because of the shortage to assist in patrolling that area. And again, when I was down there, I would delegate 1, 2, 3, depending on what was going on, that many officers to that bar specifically. And anytime an incident would occur, whether one of those officers puts out that there's a fight disturbance or anything else, you generally pull officers from any other area to come and assist.
And I also have served on the law committee for the last 2 years with Councilman Begley, but also in the last 10 years, we've had multiple downtown bars. And Councilwoman Johnson is absolutely correct. We tend to see bars that have the outside promoters have these issues. And I know you said you've been with the police for 18 years.
Correct.
So you probably remember Denim and Diamonds and
Many.
some of the other bars that we have had these issues until eventually they shut down. But you also would come in front of the law committee. This isn't the first time we've called them up. What the law committee tries to do is if there's bars that are having problems, We invite them to come in, which is why the fan said this isn't the first time they've seen us. They've seen us many times. And we try and make recommendations. We want to help you. We want your business to be successful. We want this bar to continue. But what we can't do is have the majority of our downtown Omaha police officers that are in charge of the safety of the entire downtown area that has at least 30 bars, and we have them all focused on one bar. And so I guess what I was very concerned about is the agreement of sometimes these promoters, as we've seen in other bars, history repeats itself. So what we try and do in the law committee, along with Omaha Police, is, hey, we've seen this before. Here's what we suggest you change. And we did do that. And I believe you met with the bar owners many times to attempt to resolve some of their issues and make suggestions. Is that right?
Correct.
And I guess I'm really concerned that with this hearing coming up in the long form, that and their agreement, we wouldn't have outside promoters. And all of the problems that we've heard in some of the reports and what you've explained with a number of different gangs that are sometimes inside the bar. I think you mentioned in one incident there were 2 different gangs. And that could have started the fight that were in one, and then again it spilled out into the street. That now we're also then in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks, July 15th, we're gonna have another big party, even though we're selling on July 31st. To me, this just seems like the owners kind of sticking their nose up in the air at the city. We don't care what you do. We're going to go out kind of with a bang because our closing is on July 31st. So I'd be very concerned about that. This is where a lot of these problems in these tavern reports is stem from. It's when they're having those outside promoters and those big parties, the crowd gets out of control. And that's what I heard when you started talking about the majority of these instances. You said it was shoulder to shoulder in big crowds. Is that number one, the first big problem that Omaha Police has?
It's one of the many problems, but
and then
the safety of the officers as well, because I know in at least 3 of these instances, officers were injured while just responding to the scene because of the crowd, because they were assaulted or injured and trying to make an arrest.
Well, and I think in here you also said that there were other people in the crowds that were injured as well.
Correct.
Because once you have that many people and it all fills into the street, other people have been injured in addition to the officers. So the officers can't necessarily protect everyone. So I think that due to the fact that Omaha Police, the law committee, the city of Omaha, the attorneys have attempted for years now to work with this bar owner, and yet, although there haven't been as many tavern reports, I always say it's not the number of reports. Because sometimes a report is generated and I read it and I go, the bar did a great job. Like, I think this tavern report, they should hang up in their office and say this is what we should do every day, because it's good things that the bar has done. You can't control all your patrons. But in this particular case, we've said what would work and what should be done, but the owners literally are saying it doesn't matter. We're going to continue to have this many people, and Omaha Police is going to continue to have to provide this many resources. I mean, I guess if I were the police on weekends, I might throw my hands up in the air too and just quit making the tavern reports because it doesn't really matter. They have to go there and break up the crowd anyway. I mean, is that the feeling you got?
That's the reason why I left that assignment in February. It was a headache. I was just done with it. So, I mean, it says a lot. I was there for 4 years, and it was enough for me just to be done with it.
You got frustrated.
Correct.
The same thing happening?
Just throwback. Just a lot of that shenanigans happening over and over. But yes.
Well, I appreciate your service to and serving at the riverfront for the last 4 years. And I appreciate all the time that you gave our law committee and always making yourself available for the questions and keeping us up to date. So I do appreciate all your efforts. I have nothing further, Mr. President.
Thank you. Mr. Harding, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Groman, I'll have a couple questions for you, but while you're coming up to answer the questions I might have, is that I think I heard Sergeant Mraz even say earlier that you've seen these kind of come in waves, the activity. So to that point, and picking up on what Councilmember Johnson was bringing up as well too, is I think this is an illustration of that. So in 21, there were 9 tavern reports. In 22, there were 4, and as noted, in 23, there have been 3. But I think it's also pretty important to note that we're only halfway through the year. So, I mean, if we may be seeing that wave, and I think one of the things we want to make sure is we don't see that wave continue. And it's interesting too. I noted this when I think it was the attorney for Throwback stated that there hadn't been any gunshots or stabbings at the establishment, and I thought to myself, my gosh, if that's the standard we're using, we can't. That something like that has to happen first before we take this kind of an action. I think that's terribly irresponsible on behalf of the city if that's our position. I wanted to ask Mr. Grumman, I noted in the original application, the original liquor application for Throwback, that Mr. Pham was restricted to only work in the kitchen of the establishment. And in this new application, that restriction is no longer in place. Can you explain maybe why it was originally in place and then maybe why it's not today?
There are different requirements as to who can be and cannot be in charge of the establishment under the regulations. Off the top of my head, I don't know exactly why he was prohibited originally and why he is subsequently now not seeking to remove himself simply to kitchen duty. I can follow up on that and get it to you if you like.
Okay, thank you. So I think that was probably my only question that I had of you. Thank you. And I know that there may be a pending sale on this too, and I think it would be important to know. Actually, Mr. Grumman, you can probably just tell me if I'm correct on this, but obviously any new owner or any new ownership of the property, if they want to have a liquor license, they can certainly make that application. I mean, there's more to the sale than just the liquor license, correct?
Correct.
Okay. But I'll make the point too that obviously if you have a liquor license in place, maybe there's some added value to that.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. So and I've heard a number of people, both proponents and opponents, say that that they like the concept. It's unique. It's a good concept, but a good concept isn't really the alone reason to allow for the continued operation. I think you have to have good management in place. Those are critical components to the successful operation. And quite frankly, I'm just not comfortable, nor have I been convinced that that's what's happening here today. So that's why I'll be supportive to deny the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Begley.
Thanks, Mr. President. Question for Mr. Pham, if you could, please. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
The April 2nd Sunday party that you guys had, just to kind of follow up on what I had stated about that earlier, were you aware of that incident that took place on that date?
Yes, it was a Sunday day party. Our 2 officers that worked there basically said nothing major happened. They said 2 guys got in an argument. They stopped it. One of our security officers jumped the gun and sprayed him, and one of the officers actually got sprayed. He just downplayed it and said nothing happened and left. They're usually the first ones to tell us if we got a tavern report. And this entire year, we did not get any notice at all.
Okay. And so you were aware of that incident on the 2nd of April?
We were aware that 2 guys got in an argument, yes,
Okay.
and one officer got
Thank
sprayed
you.
by accident.
Okay. And also you were aware that there was a couple of gang members that were arrested as a result of?
No.
Okay. The other question I got for you, in your council's letter, I was just curious, it says that you guys, the Throwback Arcade Lounge rentals to certain DJs and music artists, controlling dates and times of other music events of other artists. I was just curious, how do you vet DJs or artists, or how do you refuse them? Do you have a process of how that works?
Based off if we know their reputation, based off what the law committee made us do in that contract 2 years ago, targeting specific DJs that pull in an urban crowd and, predominantly current rap. So we have reduced that, if not eliminated that. I like to also say that our club is not packed wall to wall because of the restrictions that were made on us 2 years ago. We have sacrificed the business financially, and our revenues dropped 70%. So we're barely keeping the lights on, and by doing this, we're taking people's jobs out of here. And if I can address Councilman Harding too, when you're saying the shooting and stabbing statement, that's very unfair to say because compared to all the other bars, it's probably the second part of that statement. We don't have shootings and stabbings compared to other bars in the old market. These places are still don't even get mentioned on the news. They don't get no attention. There's murders. There's people dying in these bars. I would say we're the safest venue in the old market, because we take such good measures as far as the security, the off-duty officers, and Sergeant Mraz is standing up here talking like he still works there, and he's made an address so many times that he no longer works in this district. So, and I don't know, since February, and that's 4 or 5 months ago, so.
That's all the question I had. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. There are no further lights. There's a motion to deny in a second. Mr. Kuzi, one question for you. Should the motion to deny in the second be approved, this is a recommendation to the State Liquor Commission, who ultimately makes that decision. Is that correct?
Matt Kuzi, City of Omaha Law Department. That's a correct statement.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that everyone understood that process too, that although this is a serious implication and a serious vote on a long-form application that could have implications on a eventual liquor license at this location or not, that the ultimate decision is up to the State Liquor Commission, that we do believe they take our suggestions very seriously. Ms. Melton, you're recognized.
I just have procedurally, did the clerk's office receive the exhibit list so you have it as part of the record? I just wanted to make sure that that was done before the meeting and didn't get overlooked. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. No further lights. There's a motion to deny in a second. Roll call.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Yes. Bagley. Aye. Harding. Yes. Johnson. Yes. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0.
Thank you for your testimony.
Item 16, a resolution to approve the preliminary plat for Lakeside Farms with a waiver for pavement width, cul-de-sac length, street surfacing, and lot frontage located northwest of 72nd Street and Bennington Road. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing and vote on number 16 is today. Proponents, please.
Doug Kellner, TD2, 108-360 Mill Road, here on behalf of the applicant, available to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any other proponents on number 16? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed.
Move the approval.
Motion and a second to approve. Roll call.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0. Item 17, a resolution to approve the preliminary plat for Trail Ridge Ranches with a waiver for lot frontage located northwest of 214th and Grover Streets. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing and vote on number 17 is today. Proponents, please.
Thank you, President Festerson, members of the Omaha City Council. My name is Jim Lang, attorney, 8526 F Street. I represent the applicant. Any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Thank you. Any other proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. Motion and a second to approve. Roll call.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0. Item 18, a resolution to approve the preliminary plat for Deer Crest North, located southeast of 114th and State Streets. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing and vote on number 18 is today. Proponents, please.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, members of the council. Mark Johnson, 11440 West Center Road, appearing on behalf of the applicant, here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any other proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. Motion and a second to approve. Roll call.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0. Item 19, a resolution to approve the preliminary plat for Child Saving Edition located southeast of 46 and Dodge Streets. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing and vote on number 19 is today. Proponents, please.
Mark Datliff, Eric Griffin Associates, 3552 Farm Street, appearing on behalf of the applicant.
Great, thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed.
Second.
Motion a second to approve. Roll call.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 5-0. Harding abstains. Item 20, a resolution to approve the preliminary plat for Progressive Protein located northwest and southwest of 26 and O Streets. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing and vote on number 20 is today. Proponents, please.
Derek Brawl from Fraser Stryker Law Firm. Office address is 409 South 17th Street, Suite 500. Appearing on behalf of the applicant, Greater Omaha Packing. Be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Great, thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents?
Could you not stand there, please? Thank you. Rebecca Barrientos Patlin. I'm founder and president of Burlington Road Neighborhood Association. And I like to just read this.
Rebecca, just your address too for the
Oh,
record.
I'm sorry. Yes, 3305 E Street, Omaha, Nebraska, 68107. Sorry about that. Thank you, first of all. I'm here to ask you as the Omaha City Council Board not to vote today on supporting item 20 because they are also asking for a special use permit to allow meat packers and related industry. What kind of industries do they want to bring in now? We want to know in the area. As I am a passport business owner, I am all for the growth of a business and putting men and women to work, but not at risking other neighbors their quality of life. I looked at the stats of American Lung Association for welfare of the South Omaha Douglas County area in 68107. Out of 500,000 people in Douglas County, plus, there's over 148,000 children under 18. Over 8,000 of them have asthma. Over 36,000 of them adults have asthma also. Allowing more related industry as Progressive Protein could be dangerous to them and more. This release of odors from this facility currently penetrating inside of the walls of these people's homes. Day and night, they never get a relief. Our people, air and water, soil matter to us. Omaha homeowners would like to be taken care of this way for the taxes they give so generously. These types of studies would show impacts on our children and families, homeowners, small business, and guests all around this facility. Commuters hold their breath driving through Highway 75 into Omaha to their jobs, and let's not forget our tourists and the bad rap that Omaha gets as a whole from the business's odor already. And they want to bring more of the same in. These kind of rendering facilities should not be allowed within city limits unless they are 10 miles away from residential areas. Our density in South Omaha is very limited already. These rendering businesses like Progressive Proteins are not just livestock. We are smelling and breathing, burning hair, burning blood and oils, boiled guts and stomachs. They cook dog food, and the sewer odors for urine and feces are enough. the particulates of burning hair that are flying into our lungs, and the dangerous feces all over our main streets, highways, and our I-80 corridor here in Omaha. Future-related industries that they want to add to the current odors will cause more physical problems to our Omaha residents. These residents pay taxes also, and they deserve a good quality of life for their children and families, just like any other part of Omaha. Please do not vote for this today. Lay it over. Postpone it for a couple more weeks that we may talk and reason together about this. Please make amendments to progressive protein permits, looking especially to add some of these changes, like giving the neighborhood a break for one day. According to Progressive's website, they are open 7 days a week, 24/7. Please limit their process to at least 9 o'clock at night. Please make Progressive Protein put in more scrubbers. This will eliminate some of these odors. Please ask the City Planning Department to reconsider and add environmental impact studies on all quality of life issues there, such as air quality, traffic studies, chemical studies, noise impact studies, and a smokestack study. Many times we cannot even see on Highway 75 through the smoke and steam from this building, especially in cold months. This facility stacks need to be higher for traffic safety. This resolution is not just for a parking lot for new employees. It's about allowing more rendering odors in our area. Heavy industrial zoning and neighborhoods don't mix for this very reason. My final question is the rendering odors in the South Omaha area a part of the City of Omaha's master plan? Please vote no or postpone this today on Progressive Protein until some changes can be made for our South Omaha families and for their safety. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other opponents today? Seeing none, public hearings closed. Mr. Harding, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to note that this is the only action today that we are considering is the preliminary plat. The amendment to the special use permit and a final plat would have its own public hearing and come to us at a later point in time. The purpose of the preliminary plat, as I understand it, is really to allow for the ability for some additional parking, and it would have to be because of that, the preliminary plat is needed. But any additional conversations we can have about a special use permit or the final plat, we can have those when they have their public hearing as well.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. This question is for the Planning Department. Point of clarification, understanding that this vote today is only concerning the plat, should we vote yes to approve this, what impact, if any, does it have on the ability for them to go forward with their plans to do business at this location?
Dave Fanslow, City Planning. This is just the preliminary plat, so there'll be some other actions in the future, the final plat and the amendment to the special use permit, because they are expanding the boundaries of their existing use permit.
So later on, if we should decide to vote against this, then this vote that we're doing today becomes null and void?
Again, this is just the preliminary plat, so your final decision will be at a later date.
So it has no bearing on if we decide to move forward?
Without this preliminary plat approval, they could not move forward with their project as proposed.
Thank you.
Thank you. My light's not moving up. I think there's other speakers.
My light's green. So
Okay, Ms. Melton, go ahead.
I just wanted to follow up on that. It's my understanding that Is the expansion just to add 26 parking spots?
Correct.
There's no expansion of the business, is that right?
Correct.
Okay, that's what I wanted to clarify. They're already operating a business,
They are, yes.
and so what they're looking for is to add 26 parking lots.
They're expanding their parking for employees.
Okay, so the issues that Ms. Patlin has that may be valid, our vote today isn't going to change that because this is just about 26 parking spots.
Correct.
If there are complaints about the smells and pollution and everything else, do people make those complaints to planning?
To us, or probably Public Works Quality Control, air quality control.
They could call the mayor's hotline in order
Mayor's
to do that?
hotline, they can call my office. There's a number of avenues they could take.
Okay, and then the city will go and investigate any of those issues that are happening, that are allegedly happening, or that are called in, or the complaints.
Yes, we would.
Okay, and if they're violating, or if there's the smells, then the city can actually we could potentially shut their business down if it's not fixed. I mean, you go through a process of.
Correct.
If
Yeah, we would investigate and then try to remedy the situation before we went to that extreme.
Okay, because I just want to make sure that the people know what they could do and how they can complain about something like this, because I wasn't aware of it till today, but I also wanted to clarify that today's vote isn't going to change that, because today's vote is just about the 26 parking spaces.
Correct.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson.
Ms. Milton has addressed my additional questions.
Okay, thank you. There are no further lights. Is there a motion? There's a motion and a second to approve. Roll call.
Melton. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0. Item 21, a resolution to approve the preliminary plat for Elkhorn Landing with a waiver for lot frontage located south of 206th Street and Elkhorn Drive. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing and vote on number 21 is today. Proponents, please.
Mr. President, members of the council, Douglas Streeson, 10836 Old Mill Road. I have in the audience with me that one of the owners of the property being considered for final plat today. With that, we're here to answer any questions. I think all of the issues have been somewhat resolved. There's some improvements that need to be done. The owner will come down and tell you that he's willing to do those. I think you got a letter today from a neighbor to the south. There's also some replatting that comes after this plat to turn the parking lot on the east side into a different named plat that we'll follow up with. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Other proponents?
Matthew Worsner, 2002 Douglas Street, Suite 100. I represent Just Pop Holdings, LLC. Here in support, but my client has a comment that he wants to bring to the board's attention. He owns the property directly to the south that Mr. Dreesen just mentioned. His family has owned that property for decades. Mr. Dreesen and his associate were kind enough to go through the plat with me and my client last week, and as part of that discussion, we learned that there were some curbs and other water mitigation items that were part of the previous designs that had been approved, and as of last week, it appears construction has been completed on the area in question, but those curbs and other mitigation systems have not been put in. And as part of the plats and designs that we have seen, that curb system in some way is supposed to tie into additional sewer systems, and Mr. Dreesen would be more appropriate to discuss the engineering than a lowly lawyer would. But the comment that I would like to make is, going forward, my client wants to make sure that the board and the city is doing what it can to inspect to make sure that the property is actually matching what was approved by the planning department and by the council.
Okay, thank you. Other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Mr. Harding.
Thank you, Mr. President. Jason, would you mind coming down, please? So I was glad to hear that Matthew said that he and Doug Dreesen were able to get together to talk about this. And I had a chance to talk to Mr. Gillen before the meeting, who's one of the owners, and wanted to make sure that it was on the record stating that you would make this correction, or that was maybe just an oversight in the original construction. So I just wanted to ask you to have it on the record for you to state that.
Yes, yeah. Jason Gilman, 20605 Elkhorn Drive. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. And I would just add to the proponent's concern or observation about the infrastructure required, that would be inspected and supervised by the planning department prior to any kind of building permit being issued. So I think that concern will be covered, right, Mr. Franslaw? Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Sure, I'll do it.
Thanks. We had a little issue there with the microphone, but he said yes.
I did.
All right. Thank you. No further lights. Is there a motion? I'll second. Or Mr. Rowe seconds. Roll call.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Items 22 through 24 will have one public hearing for property located southeast of 31st and Marcy Streets. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval. Item 22, an ordinance to rezone this property from R6 District and R7 District to R7 District. Item 23, an ordinance to approve a major amendment to the PUR Overlay District. Item 24, a resolution to approve the Diggs Apartments Mason Tax Increment Financing Redevelopment Project Plan in an amount up to $4,114,758.
Public hearing and vote on number 22, 23, and 24 are today. Just a reminder to council members, we'll do this combined public hearing, but each of these items would require a separate vote. Proponents, please.
Kyle Hazy with the E&A Consulting Group, 10909 Mill Valley Road, Omaha, Nebraska, 68154. Along with myself, I'm representing the applicant. Along with myself, Stephen Held with Uptown Properties is in the audience, and Mike Carter, legal counsel for the project, is here as well. The property we were discussing today is located on the southwest corner of 31st Street and Marcy. As you can see, it's outlined here in the purple. It is approximately 1.5 acres in size. The majority of the lot is currently vacant. There's a few homes still on the property as well. It is currently zoned R6 and R7. I think there is broken up into 17 different lots right now. The south side of the property, from this line down, is currently zoned R7 with an approved R7 PUD. As you look at this exhibit here, everything to the south here with the south building and parking lot is already part of an approved R7 PUD. We are looking to add the north parcel to this project, as well as to make it one PUD. On February 21st of this year, we had a neighborhood meeting at Viz Major. We had approximately 8 neighbors that showed up. A lot of those neighbors are already familiar with this project due to previous neighborhood meetings that we had. And our client's had a lot of open communication with neighbors on a regular basis as this project has moved forward. As I mentioned, we are wanting to revise this existing PUD to add the building to the north. Between the two buildings, there will be a total of 188 units. 75% of those units will be either efficiency and one bedrooms. The breakdown of the mix is 52 efficiency apartments, 85 one-bedroom apartments, and 51 two-bedroom apartments. There'll be a total of 147 parking stalls. 23 of those will be surfaced in this parking lot that's hidden behind the two buildings, 18 on-street, and 107 of those parking stalls will be garage under parking. It is also located approximately 0.3 miles from the proposed rail car line. The property, let me show you here. The property is surrounded by R7, as you can see called out here, and R6 properties. Just to the other side of the street is also this yellow line represents the TOD boundary. This is a picture of the south building elevation. The buildings are going to be a mix of 3 and 4-story buildings. This is the south building that was already previously approved. We did not make any changes to that building. It has the breezeway on the west side, and that leads back to the parking that is screened behind the building. The proposed north building is also 3 to 4 stories. On the corner is a 3-story component with underground parking, and then the 4-story units. What's really nice about this north building, as you can see here, there is a courtyard component to the units. You can maybe see that better from the plan view. This courtyard gives a nice area for the residents to enjoy some outdoor space. It also gives a little break to the plane of the building and provides a nice setback and scale, pedestrian scale along the street. And this building is also very similar to some of the historical multifamily buildings in the area, such as the Courtyard building and the Bernard Flats building that has that kind of courtyard feel along the street. With that, I'll make myself available for any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Other proponents, please.
Stephen Held, 11506 Nicholas Street, here on behalf of the applicant. I'm also here for questions, anything additional concerns. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other proponents that want to speak today?
Afternoon, Don Seaton, Omaha City Planning Department, and I'm here just to address the TIF application portion of this hearing. I think you've got a pretty good feel for the physical location and nature of the project. 188 units in 2 buildings. There'll be 129 parking stalls on the site and an additional 18 on-street stalls for 147 stalls. This project represents an investment of $46.1 million in the neighborhood. Their TIF request is for $4,114,758. It's been approved by the TIF committee, complies with the city's master plan, and we ask for your approval.
Thank you. Other proponents? Seeing none, any opponents?
Hi, my name's Pat O'Donnell. My address is 624 South 31 Avenue, so I'm just north of Leavenworth. But I also own a house at 3020 Marcy Street, directly across from where the courtyard is going to be. My ex-wife owns one at 3028 Marcy Street. Both are rental properties and both are well-kept properties. I'd just like to voice what I've heard throughout the neighborhood. I didn't know anything about a meeting back in February, but that doesn't mean I didn't miss it. First of all, I want to thank Councilman Begley for coming this weekend and spending some time on Saturday going through the area with me and let me explain what the neighborhood's concerns are. No matter what the end results are, it's truly appreciated by myself as well as the neighborhood. I have a combined 45 years in the neighborhood. I grew up there. At 18, 19 years old, I could not wait to get out of the neighborhood. Couldn't wait. And about 25 years ago, in my late 30s, I chose to move into my parents' home as I moved them into assisted living. And the plan was to fix it, to rent it, or sell it. Well, I'm the youngest of 9. And it was home. It was my roots. And so I decided to stay there, and I decided to buy it. And my siblings asked me if I was nuts, because the neighborhood was very blighted at the time, and just different from where we had grown up. Since then, I've been in a position to do some major major investments in the neighborhood. I've purchased some homes. I moved my business down on 20th and Mason. So I'm very, very, very committed to the neighborhood. You know, I don't know exactly what the planning department's vision is, but I do know the neighborhood very well. Let me also say that I am extremely pro-development. Okay? I like what I've seen in our neighborhood. I like the direction our city is going. Don't know it all because I'm not sitting in your chairs or your chairs, but I'm impressed. And overall, I couldn't be more pleased. This particular development, I'm concerned, is how it's being presented. You know, I heard the gentleman say 0.3 miles from mass transit is how I understood it. I counted it as 5, 6, 7 blocks, okay? I'm concerned that this project is going to be detrimental to the outstanding current neighborhood and to the businesses. And one example would be the mill, and some of you probably are familiar with the mill. It's booming. It's an excellent operation, and I look out my front door and I see the mill, and I'm so impressed by their operation. Their overflow currently goes on 31st Street, just to the east of their operation. And there's 5, 6, 7 parking stalls that are open during the day, and it's been a good spillover for them. My concern is parking, okay? My concern is parking. Many of the renters that I have are either grad students, med students, young professionals. That's kind of what has fallen in place, you know, in that area over the last few years. The foot traffic in the last 25 years has changed dramatically. And again, I can't be more pleased. Dewey Park's dog park and the flow of people rolling around our neighborhood is fantastic. So congratulations on your vision. I also know that these young people all have 1 or 2 cars. And while I was with Councilman Bagley, we happened to run into some people that were renting 1 block away from my street on 32nd Avenue. Stopped and talked to them for a moment. I know him, and I said, Nick, where do you work at? He works at 16th and Farnham. Maddie works out of home, right there on 32nd Avenue. I said, how many cars do you have? They said, we have 2, but we kind of think we could get by with 1. Well, yeah, that makes sense. Maddie's at home most of the time. Nick, how are you getting to work? And Councilman Bagley asked, do you take a scooter or you ride a bike? He says, no, but sometimes I walk. And my comments were, do you walk in January to 16th and Farnham from 32nd and Leavenworth? And he looked at me like I was nuts, and he laughed and said, no. These young people still need cars, okay? They still need cars. I put together some math on the proposed site. There's 52 studio apartments, which equals 52 beds. There's 85 one-bedroom apartments that equal 85 beds. There's 51 two-bedroom apartments that equal 102 beds. That's 188 apartments on that 3/4 of an acre with 239 beds. Assuming this type of model is most likely not driven towards families and children living in any of those beds, that's a potential 239 beds would equal 239 people and 239 possible vehicles. Now, assuming with a conservative number, that 30% of those 239 beds are being shared by 2. That would be an additional 72 people. That would be an additional 72 cars. That's 239 cars, 239 people, 72 additional people, that equals 311 people, and a possible 311 cars. Now let's look at the proposed parking. There's 107 stalls. There's 22 off-street parking. And there's 18 on-street parking. That's a total of 147 parking stalls, as the gentleman mentioned. 311 minus 147 equals 164. That's 164 possible additional cars looking for parking spots in a neighborhood that is already full. I mean jam full. On this, that's, if you can imagine, 100 to 200 cars daily looking for parking spots when they come home. We're currently, on a good night, there's 5 to 10. And that's in about a 3 square block radius. I understand the vision that the city has about walkable neighborhoods. But currently, there's not a lot to walk to in our neighborhood. There's just not. I ask this question sarcastically. Maybe not. Is the city or the developer or the planning department going to require the new development to limit the number of tenants' cars? Are they going to tell them that you can be here, but we're out of parking spots? Are they going to require the new tenants not to have visitors? And if they do they have to walk to come see them? So again, I want to reiterate, I am excited about the vision and the things that are happening in an area I grew up in. I made that investment before the city saw the vision because I believe in my neighborhood. I love my neighborhood. I truly believe that this will be detrimental to the neighborhood as it stands. I'm not against this apartment complex. I'm not. I'm against the fact there's no place for these vehicles to go. And it's nothing but a wish that you're going to attract young professionals or med students that are going to not have cars. And I don't, in my mind, see someone walking from 31st and Marcy to 33rd and Harney to catch a streetcar that I also believe in, to go up to the med center at 42nd and Farnham. I don't see it happening. They're halfway there. They can walk down Leavenworth and get there. So again, thank you for your time, your consideration. This is not just me talking. I'm just the one that happens to be able to come and spend the afternoon here, and not all of my neighbors can. And I appreciate the role that each one of you play in your districts and in your city. Okay? Thank you.
Next opponent, please.
Hi, my name is Dana Rose, and I'm at 3032 Marcy Street. And I moved in 2009, and so I've seen quite a bit of change within the neighborhood. And it's been for the better. I will agree with what Pat has said. I am not opposed to the project, and I think it could bring a lot of different people in the neighborhood, and I support it. But also I share the same concerns about parking. Since the mill has opened, it's been less than a year, I don't know, just several months, the mill has been open. It's a coffee house that's on the corner of, I believe, 32nd and Leavenworth. I have seen the parking spill up into in front of my house, and I'm directly across the street from the proposed apartment complex. And I see them walking from in front of my house down the street to the mill. And when I have guests come, I only have a one-car space driveway. My guests are having to park further and further away now that the mill is there. And so I foresee this having a greater effect on parking, obviously. So I'm just here to just voice my concern and to ask you all to please reconsider the amount of dedicated parking for this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other opponents today? Seeing none, public hearings closed. Mr. Bagley, you're recognized.
Thanks, Mr. President. I want to thank Mr. O'Donnell and Ms. Rose for coming down today. Your position is genuine, and I believe that when we met Saturday. And by the way, as I do, several of the emails that I got were, the opposition wasn't, just like Mr. O'Donnell said, it's not that we're against developing, building the urban core, supporting the TOD, and more density. The question becomes the parking. Very simple. I got a question for Mr. Held, if he's back there. And I want to understand this better, because I like, development. Since I've been on the council with the streetcar and the things we talked about, we have to build the density of the urban core, and I am totally in support of that. But I do want to get this one right, and I need to understand. So the 188 units, we got 147 parking spots, and I think it was 18 on the street, right?
Yeah, correct.
So you're going to make me do math. Is that 129 then that are parking stalls that are not on the street?
Yes.
Okay, I want to quit while I'm ahead on the math. So are you leasing or renting the parking spots, or are you just, I get home, I find a spot to park at the 129, or Don gets home, he can find a spot wherever he can squeeze in, of those 129. So are they just park as you go, or are you leasing them or sharing them?
Do I need to repeat the Stephen Held one?
Yeah, that'd be good.
Stephen Held, 11506 Nicholas Street. Yes, we're leasing them, even the on-site surface stalls. So we have 102, I believe, under the two buildings, and then there's 23 surface. Yeah, 107 under building parking. And we're leasing all of them, even the surface on site stalls that are right here.
Okay, so I understand, and I appreciate you walking me through this, because we didn't talk about this. And by the way, I appreciate you meeting me too, whenever that was, Friday or Monday. Was it yesterday, I guess? Lose
Right.
track of my days. So when you say lease that, if I'm leasing a spot, I'm the only one that can park there?
Correct.
Or can I share it with, if Don works at night and I'm gone during the day, can I say, hey, Don, you can share my spot, or you can park there?
Yeah, we wouldn't be opposed to that. If you had like a 2-bedroom unit and you had different work hours with your roommate or whoever lives with you, the spot would be dedicated probably per the unit, not to a particular person.
Okay,
If that makes sense.
And I guess it's important also that there's 40 full bike lockers that are going to be in
Yes.
the garage area, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're leasing those, and it's not a shared space program. It's reserved, leased.
Yes.
Okay, have you done an analysis? I didn't ask you this when we met, but I want to thank Mr. Fanslaw and Mr. England. They spent a lot of time over a couple days, and couple of my colleagues, we had good conversation. Brinker and I did, and Pete and I did. Have you ever done like a parking analysis just to see how that works? How far have you drilled down on that? And I'm not trying to nail you on this, but I just was curious as I go through this process. What kind of analysis have you done for parking down there?
So I would say, historically, when we started this process, the building on the south, I think at the time, this was before the streetcar was announced. We went through the planning process. We rezoned it. I believe our parking ratio was, I think it was close to 1:1, and maybe like 0.95 or something like that, which, we haven't done any deep dive on parking analysis. I would say, developers kind of play off each other. We copycat. So I would say in the general area, we were seeing that 1:1, one per unit, not per bed, was a pretty kind of standard, especially if you're going through the PUR process. That kind of seemed to be a standard, allowable what under the PUR of what we, planning's internal policy was. And so that's kind of the route that we went. Actually, when we started the process of looking at including the building to the north, we came in with a plan that showed a building with, in aggregate, the whole site would be 1:1. It was what changed the dialogue was the announcement of the streetcar. So I would say, and I keep going back to this, we talked about this, Danny, but that's really kind of what shifted. At least it seemed like we had very strong support from planning that because of the announcement of the streetcar and the fact that we're in this, I pulled this from the housing and mobility plan, but the pink area is where our site's at. We're within that, not the core, but the zone of influence, and so some of our TIF is going to the streetcar. That seemed to be what drove us to go from 1:1 parking to, I believe TOD zoning allows for 0.7.
Yeah.
And so I think we're just above 0.7.
You want to come up? Sorry.
Yeah,
I
sorry,
can't
I
hear you.
don't-
That's okay.
Kyle Hazy, E&A Consulting Group, 10909 Mill Valley Road. There's different levels within the TOD. TOD 1 range, which I believe is just maybe a half block north of this property. There is not a set parking requirement for the TOD 1. The TOD 2, which is, as was on one of these exhibits. Oops. The TOD 2 boundary, which is shown here in the yellow, they are down. You're allowed to have half of your typically required amount of parking spaces. So typically, your typical amount of parking spaces required within this project, I believe, is 287, I think is what you're typically required. And you go by, if you have the TOD 2, you're allowed to go with half of that, which comes up to, if I remember what my math was, I think we were 7 parking stalls above that. I think it was like 139 or 140 is what would be required within the TOD 2, and we were at 147, just being the 150 feet outside that TOD zoning, if that makes sense.
It does, and Mr. Fanzel and I had talked about that yesterday. If I can sneak Mr. Fanzel in for a second for a question.
Yep, Dave Fanslaw, City Planning.
Dave, so I processed a lot of information on this. So right now the TOD line stops where?
A half a block north of here. That yellow, I think there's a yellow line on the very top of that diagram. That is the existing TOD zone that you can find in our master plan.
Okay, and when you in England were double teaming me yesterday, did you say that the intent of the city, I'm not speaking for you, I just want to be clear, are you going to look to expand that south of where it currently is now?
We are. That boundary was set because of the orbit line, but now that it's pretty apparent to us that the streetcar is going to happen, we think it's responsible to expand the TOD to the south in the future. We just, haven't done that yet. But it is, like I said, it's a half a block away from TOD, and the TOD zoning, Kyle's correct. if it was TOD, it would require 141. There's 282 units, or I'm sorry, 282 parking stalls that would be required. Half that would be 141. This project's providing 147.
Okay, thanks, Dave.
You bet.
One last comment, and I appreciate everybody's patience on this, because Mr. O'Donnell, when we talked, and again, a lot of the emails, it was the same theme. I want to be clear, my position is supporting TOD, the streetcar, obviously, with all the votes we made, and building up the urban core density. It's a great, diverse neighborhood down there. I mean, when Mr. O'Donnell and I drove that, it's great. You got Park Ave on the east, you got the square going to be built on Leavenworth, you got the triangle, and even to the west, before I was in the council, 33rd and Mason area. The one thing I just can't get past is, in the conversation I've had with everybody I mentioned, is to be sure to get this right. I didn't want to prolong this, but I would like to at least make a motion to lay it over so I can understand better with you, Stephen, and you guys, and even planning on the parking just a little bit better. I'm not comfortable enough yet, and that's at least my will. My colleagues obviously can weigh in, but I would like to make a motion at least to lay this over so I can have more conversation with Stephen and your group and planning on the parking. And if there's anything that can be tweaked or done, I think I know the answer, but I want to understand and be comfortable with before I vote on this. If I could get a motion to lay it over, that's what my motion is right now.
And I will second it.
How long is the layover?
Ms. Butler, is it 2 weeks?
We meet again on the 11th,
For July 11th, the layover to July 11th.
Okay. Is that your second?
I will second the July 11th layover.
Okay. Does that conclude your remarks for now,
It
Mr.
does.
Bigley?
Thank you, Mr.
Okay.
President.
There's a motion, a second to layover to July 11th. Ms. Melton, you're recognized.
Well, actually, since we're laying it over, I might just kind of refrain, but I think that the issue that I have that I discovered today, it's that because of the TOD, that's part of our city ordinance. So the fact that I have problems with the number of parking spots, because I'm still having a hard time believing that that many people are not going to have cars in Omaha. And I get the streetcar is going to be 2 to 3 blocks away, but okay, I'm the same way. I'm not going to walk 2 to 3 blocks in the middle of January because it's cold and I don't want to, I mean, and so, and I don't think that there's a whole lot of people that there's that many people that would be like, oh, I only have to walk 3 blocks of the streetcar so I don't have to own a car. I mean, because I'm looking at where's the closest grocery store, not a convenience store, but, I mean, just all the normal needs that a person would have. It's my opinion, this seems a little far out, but pursuant to our actual current city code, planning department, planning board is not wrong approving this because they go through and say, this is the ordinance, this fits, they don't have to have more parking pursuant to our city code. But I guess I'm having the same struggle that you are, Mr. Bigley. I'm inclined to just say I'm going to approve it. If I don't like it, then I should probably change the code or change the ordinance allowing it to happen. My fear is that if we start doing more and more of these, because I haven't seen a lot of these that's had this, I always say just because you can doesn't mean you should. So just because you can limit it to this many parking spaces, I think other developers have still, when they reported it, we only need to do, or we're only required to do 141, but we're putting in 190. And that's, I think, what we've heard before. So this might be the first one that's really, we're putting in just a minimal amount. And I understand Ms. Rose and Mr. McDonald's issue. If we start doing this all over and we don't see people giving up their cars, which it sounds like we're anticipating, then we're gonna, this whole neighborhood is gonna be in for a whole lot of hurt. And I just don't wanna, I really don't want Mr. McDonald or Miss Rose to see me in 10 years and go, I told you so. I mean, because it just, to me, just because you can put it in, is there any way maybe you could put in a little more parking that maybe you'd be able to take out later once density and public transit kind of catches up to what you're doing? Because that just doesn't seem like enough to me.
Is it okay if I?
And you can, yeah. And I was gonna say either that or I was giving you the opportunity
Sorry,
to
I
think
meant-
about it,
yeah.
and you can respond on on July 11th if you want.
Well, I just had a few things to say in response to kind of your guys' comments, but Stephen Held, 11506 Nicholas Street. We really have, I mean, if you look, without doing 2 levels of parking under the building, which I think would compromise the design integrity of, you want the building to be as compatible as possible. You want transparency at the street. You want it to orient, that's why we incorporated the courtyard. You're going to be shifting the building up more to be able to do that, and I'm not even sure what the topography of it. So really what would have to happen in order to get a better ratio would you would have to decrease density. And then the other thing that I would say is, and you kind of touched on this, is from a developer's perspective, I guess makes us a little bit, I feel like it would make the development community confused because here you are supporting the streetcar. And again, when we started the south site, we were at 1-to-1. And at the time we could have probably, I think there was discussions about asking for a waiver that would get us to like TOD zoning, but we knew that we were, just south of that boundary. And so at the time there was really like no dialogue around that because there was no support for it. What changed again was the streetcar. And I think if the city of Omaha has a vision for the streetcar and it being successful, which again, I'm very much in support of it, but you probably have to make parking more difficult so that more people are going to use the streetcar. And I would say the vast majority of the people who would live in our community are young professionals that would probably work in Midtown right along the streetcar or downtown right along the streetcar. And so, yeah, again, I guess it's just confusing to us because we feel like we were following the rules. Again, we started off with 1-to-1 and with, kind of our working with planning, we kind of got to this point. So I'm happy to lay it over, but again, without reducing density, there's really no way, I don't think, to get any more parking on site. So.
Well, I guess my kind of opinion, I'm okay with laying it over. I just think that I'll most likely have to support this project because that's what our ordinance says. And we can't do that. We can't have ordinances that then we say, oh, but by the way, we're going to select you that even though you check the box, we're not going to let you have it. That's not right. Then the city would be picking and choosing winners and losers. So I agree with you on that point. But again, I want to also come back, though. This isn't right on the streetcar route. We've never had a streetcar, and don't think just because we supported the streetcar that somehow we're going to guarantee that people are going to walk 3 blocks to get to the streetcar. I don't know if that's true or not. I do think people who live on the streetcar route will definitely use it. This is one of those that's, are you sure you want to take that risk? Because if you don't have enough parking, well, what you'll end up happening is people may not then pay this amount for these apartments because they don't have any parking. So then that is a risk that the developer's taking. So when I ask you about, is there any way you could increase it? To me, if there was a way that didn't break the bank on your development, it would probably be better so that you weren't stuck with empty units because the market is going to determine, hey, that apartment might be great, but there's no place for me to park. I hate it. I'm getting out of here. If I can break my lease, I'm going to because I have no place to park my car. So that wouldn't be good for the owners of the development either.
Sure.
Hoping that maybe we could meet. Sorry, do you have something to say?
No, I'm Michael Carter, attorney for the number 11506 Nicholas Suite 103. Your questions are correct. The answer is isn't that not a developer risk that we're willing to take? And
Yep.
Two factual questions here is, as Mr. Bagley properly stated, they're leasing these spaces out. So somebody that's going to rent from us will know they don't have a spot. So will they choose to go off-site? But it is a market decision that they're going to make. And another issue that we talked about is that bike room. Those are like full lockers. Some of those bikes are like $5,000 or $10,000. They're more than cars. And for the young professional, that's without aging myself, my children would do that. I would never do it, but my children will. And so when we go to these numbers, if I was sitting here 5 years ago or 10 years ago representing a developer, it wouldn't have got past the money behind,
Right.
you know, and the banks and the financial institutions. It's not just us that are taking this risk. I mean, they're putting $42 million into it. There's studies that show that these work. And I know it's not a shock is the correct word, but there is a changing of thought that if we're going to create urban cities, this is what you're going to have. And I understand it's not the same that we all sat in this room 10 years ago and discussed. It's different. And again, we are, from the pure legal standpoint, we are complying with, you know, city code and,
Right,
you know, and
right. And
ordinances,
so-
et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But
And that's why what I wanted to say, and what I wanted
Yeah, I know.
even to let
Yes.
planning know is I support laying this over.
Yeah.
I have serious concerns about the parking. I just don't think it can affect my vote, because I
Right.
think that what I have to vote on is whether the project complies with our city code, the master plan, the surrounding areas. So if I don't like what our code is, it would be change the code. I'm not saying
and we've worked with the
we
city,
do
and
that,
actually, it's been a collaborative effort between planning and us to, you know, come to this design. I mean, this is our fourth or fifth, you know, redesign of, you know, this particular, which is normal. I mean, that's
Well,
typical, yeah.
And I actually think what Miss Rose and Mr. McDonald are saying is, gosh, we hope this is successful. And, you know, I think they'd be perfectly happy if there isn't a whole bunch of parking congestion. That'd be great. I can see that it just seems to me like this is one of the first projects where we're really taking that chance that it could go great, or the parking could like ruin the whole surrounding neighborhood.
My understanding is we're the first people that are using this situation, but the streetcar, I mean, the city's spending a tremendous amount of money to put the streetcar in. These are the developments that I think we're hoping to get, and the young professionals to live in these places. So, thank you.
And you're right. I'm probably dating myself too. The suburban mom, almost grandma, is like, I just can't imagine not having the car with hauling all the kids around with all their equipment and everything else. It's beyond my
mine too.
my thought process. But you know what? I think it's great if people want to get out and do that. That's great. And if we're not going to affect the neighborhood, I do think it's fabulous.
Thank you.
Anyway,
Yeah.
thank you for
Thank
adding
you.
your 2 cents. I have nothing further, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Rowe.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I think some of my questions or comments were really answered by the last two testifiers, but I did want to ask Stephen, just, based on, I didn't look at the paperwork in detail enough to know if there was a business plan in there, but who is your target market for these apartments?
It is the young professional, and in those working primarily in Midtown and downtown that would benefit from the streetcar. And I do think if the streetcar is going to work, I think it has to rely on, and that's why there's this that zone, like we're part of that zone of influence. Our TIF is going to that. So, again, it's just the city's saying this. So, we're relying on this information to make decisions. And I think if you look at other cities, that is the route that ends up happening, and parking probably does become more problematic. But that's kind of one of the costs that you have to take for the benefits that, there's no, you don't get all the benefits that you want. There are some trade-offs. So, we believe strongly that the streetcar is really, again, without the streetcar, I don't think we'd be presenting the project this way. We'd be presenting it at 1-to-1. And that's really the difference here is we'd be at 1-to-1 or this. And the streetcar is what changed our kind of minds on that. And I would say that was in collaboration with planning. So that's kind of where we're at. Even 1-to-1, you're still, because you do have 25% 2 bedrooms, you're still not 1-to-1 per bed. But that's kind of been the standard in this area for, I would say, quite a while. And some developers do decide to do more. There's a number of projects that don't. I think Blackstone, there's quite a few projects that are shoot at like maybe because they're in the neighborhood business district, which is exempt from parking. So I think there's a couple that have like 0.5. So yep, that's where we're at. Happy to lay it over. and maybe talk through this more. Maybe it'd be good to have another meeting with planning and get their thoughts. So
I've been kind of hanging out with some of that MAPA crowd and the Bike Nebraska crowd and trying to study. I mean, I'm from West Omaha. This is not my district, but I've been trying to learn as much as I can about modern urban planning, and it's gonna require us to take some risks, like you are, to do these projects. To realize that there are people out there that will ride their bike to the landmark hotel downtown in the middle of January. I was at a meeting down there with that Omaha by Design crowd, and there were people riding their bike in the middle of January. It was 10 degrees out. And I said, "What are you doing?" He goes, "Oh, it's not that big of a deal." Well, might be not for them, but I'm with you, Amy. I'm not probably not going to be on the bike there, but there are people that will, and I think we're going to have to take that risk and see if we can make it happen. For everything, the whole package to be successful, we can't cut a corner and then not expect it to fail. So appreciate your comments, appreciate the risks that you're taking and the chance you're taking. I hope that in a couple of weeks that we can have some more discussion on this that helps us all understand.
thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Harding.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Begley, I'll go ahead and I'll support your request to layover too, but I will state for the record that had we been voting on it today, I would have voted for it. And I'll probably repeat some of these comments in 2 weeks as well too, but I'll just lay a couple of them down today. We had a little discussion after our pre-council meeting today about this subject too, and I mean it is as I think Mr. Carter and Mr. Held both stated. I mean it's market driven too. I mean there are people will knowingly rent if if they need a stall and they know one's available there, then they may rent it. If they don't need a stall and there's an available unit there, they may rent it. I mean, that's really the risk of the developer. And I think with their experience in the area as well with other developments, I think they know the market pretty well. So it's, as Ms. Melton also pointed out, I mean, and planning has concurred, it's code compliant, it's been through both planning department and planning board's recommendation of approval. It's allowable by right, so it's ultimately really the risk of the developer as well too. So I will support the layover today, but I'll be looking forward to supporting it in a couple of weeks as well too.
Thank you. No further delays. There's a motion to lay over to July 11th and a second. Roll call.
Okay, and just to clarify, this will be for items 22 through 24.
Correct.
Yep, okay. Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0.
Thank you.
Item 25, a resolution to approve the 7101 Mercy Tax Increment Financing Redevelopment Project Plan located at 7101 Mercy Road and an amount up to $6,549,341.
Public hearing and vote on number 25 is today. Proponents, please.
Yeah, good afternoon. Don Seaton, Omaha City Planning Department. This project is located at 7101 Mercy Road. Might zoom in a little bit here. Just east of 72nd Street. There's an existing office building built in 1968 on the site. Fairly large and prominent structure. This is going to be demolished and a new apartment complex will be developed. There will be two buildings. One will contain 200 market rate apartments. The other will be a parking structure with a kind of a skyway bridge connecting the two structures. The developer is 7101 Mercy Holdings, managed by Jack Schrager. You have some elevation, well, rendering perspective. This project represents an investment of just under $50 million in the area. The TIF support for the project is $6,549,341. This comes to you with a recommendation of approval from the TIF Committee, Planning Department, and the Planning Board. It's a appropriate land use for the location. It complies with the city's master plan. We ask for your approval.
Thank you. Other proponents?
Thank you, Mr. President. Brent Beller, 11440 West Center Road, on behalf of the applicant. Loesch Properties is Jack Schrager. Jack is an Omaha native. They are headquartered now in Colorado. A couple years ago, they did the Abacus project out on 192nd and Center in Dodge. This is their second project coming to Omaha, so it's good to have hometown developers doing this. It's fascinating to hear the discussion you all just had about an urban infill development. Not that we're that much farther west, but one of the things that we are very keen on, we're just west of Exarban here, is the parking garage. So it's the dichotomy between being an urban infill and being 72nd and Center. We are investing in a 300-stall, 5-story parking garage with the detached garage because you're right, Ms. Melton. There are many folks that still want to have that, even though I'm a huge bike advocate and I do ride my bike everywhere. In any event, the metrics of this deal, as Don mentioned, 6.2 with TIF is about 7.5%. Without is 4.4. We actually, as we've gotten estimates, our TIF eligible expenses now are, Don had mentioned 6.5 million. They're over 7 million now, just as we've gotten actual numbers. But we gave notice to the office tenants a couple years ago. Their leases are expiring just on their term, so they'll be vacated later this fall. And demolition, we're hopeful, will start in October. So here for any questions. We appreciate your consideration.
Thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Mr. Begley, you're recognized.
Thanks, Mr. President. I just wanted to say, Jack, I apologize to him. He had sent me a text last month that when I saw this on the agenda, I didn't respond to him because he had met with me several weeks ago before that. And so in fairness to him, I appreciate him reaching out. That was on me that I didn't. But I'm so glad to support this. It's going to be great. You can go down to Stinson.
Yep.
Like I went last Saturday for the concerts, enjoy Exarban Village, or you can shoot over to the Drover and get a nice big steak. So I'm looking forward to this development. I'll be glad to support this today. Thank you.
That'll be on our marquee materials. Quarter mile from the Drover. Thank you.
Yeah, right. Is that a motion? There's a motion and a second to approve. No further lights. Roll call.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0. Item 26, resolution to approve the 2816 Ames Tax Increment Financing Redevelopment Project Plan located at 2816 Ames Avenue in an amount up to $321,729.
Public hearing and vote on number 26 is today. Proponents, please.
Yeah, good afternoon. Don Seaton, Omaha City Planning Department. The project located on Ames, north side of Ames, near the North Freeway. It's a site of just under 2 acres. The TIF portion of the project will be the western portion. The applicants are going to subdivide the site and sell off the eastern portion. This project involves the comprehensive rehab of an existing building on the site, a building of about 10,400 square feet. It's a former church building. The developer is preparing the building for a health services tenant. It's Archwell Health. They focus on geriatric services. I would note that this property is in an extremely blighted area, so qualifies for a 20-year TIF term. The developer is AH 2816 Ames, LLC. It's managed by Nicholas Strategakes. Total project investment in the neighborhood is about $2.5 million. They're asking for $321,729 in TIF support. Project meets the required criteria of the TIF program, complies with the master plan. We ask for your approval.
Thank you. Other proponents?
Mr. President, council members, Michael Sands, 1700 Farnham Street, on behalf of the developer. Don laid out the facts nicely. A couple of things that I'll just add. So Archwell Health, like Don said, specializes in geriatric or aging population services. And specifically, they'll have a number of specialties in one location. which make it is much needed for underserved or aging populations because transportation can be a big barrier to receiving adequate health care, and especially when it comes to specialized health care. The only other thing that I'll add is that the site is in dire need of a sidewalk replacement. It's in pretty bad shape, and so that'll be a part of the project as well. So happy to answer any questions that you have. Appreciate your consideration.
Thank you. Other proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Ms. Johnson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Sands. First of all, I would like to compliment you on your decision to invest in this area or this building as a whole, because it has been sitting there for quite some time and underutilized. I do have one question, and that is, how much public outreach did you do on this?
So in my meeting with the planning department, it was suggested that I reach out with you, Councilwoman, which I did. Unfortunately, we didn't have the opportunity to connect before today. Outside of that, it wasn't thought it would be necessary to have a neighborhood meeting just because of the little amount of effect, I guess, that it was perceived that it would have. It was already a building that was in use. It's a pretty large lot, and it wasn't seen, I don't think, as disruptive to the neighborhood. So we did not hold a neighborhood meeting, but that was on the advice and counsel of the planning department.
Would you be willing to have that conversation with several neighborhoods to introduce this concept, this idea of what you're doing? Because
yeah, absolutely.
Again, because of the nature of the funding that's being poured into this, in order to for those neighborhoods to embrace this fully and accomplish the objective of helping an underserved community, you kind of pretty much do need to get their involvement in this in order for it to be successful in having the impact that this could provide to the area. So I would vote in support of that with that stipulation.
Absolutely. And to be clear, my client is the owner of the property. Archwell Health will be the tenant, but I will see to it personally that the message gets passed along to Archwell, because they'll be the ones best suited, and to follow up to make sure that something to that extent happens, that meeting happens.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Is that a motion?
Yes, I move to support this with that condition, yes.
Can't do a condition. It's on the record. We can't do a condition, but it's on the record.
Okay. I'll second the motion to approve. No further lights. Roll call.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley.
Aye.
Harding. Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0. Item 27, a resolution to approve a special use permit to allow daycare services in the R435 district located at 6017 South 20th Street. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing and vote on number 27 is today. Proponents, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Sandra Perez. My address is 14719 Madison Circle. I am here on behalf of the owner.
Thank you. Thanks for staying with us here this afternoon. Any other proponents that want to speak today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed.
Motion approved.
Motion and a second to approve. Roll call.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Item 28, a resolution to approve a special use permit to allow daycare services in the R4 district located at 14822 Ruggles Street. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing and vote on number 28 is today. Proponents, please.
Amanda Wheeler, 14822 Ruggles Street, Omaha, Nebraska, 68116.
Thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. Ms. Melton, you're recognized.
Well, no, I just want to say thank you so much for not only what you do, because you're providing a great service, to working moms, but you sat down here for the last 3.5 hours. I think the one before you just left, I didn't have a chance to say anything. So thanks for sitting
welcome.
through
Thank
that,
you.
and thank you for providing that service.
Thanks.
Is that a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion and a second. Roll call.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0.
Thanks.
Items 29 through 31 can be considered together for property located at 5020 Grand Avenue to consider special use permits to allow large group living in the R1 district, emergency residential care in the R1 district, and for a major amendment to allow recreational club in the R1 district. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing and vote on items 29, 30, and 31 are today. Proponents, please.
Hello, friends. I'm getting to the tail end. Ashley Kuhn, 4614 Dodge, here for any questions.
Thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Ms. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ashley, I just wanted to commend you and your group, Radius, for bringing that vision to life and including us in your opening, your ribbon cutting, and actually embracing the neighborhood and kind of getting them involved in this whole process from the beginning to the end. And hopefully you will continue that engagement with the community. So I just wanted to pay homage to that effort, and you did a very good job.
Thank
I move
you.
that we go ahead and approve the.
Thank you so much,
3
and thank you
items.
to all of the city for all the help to get that one done. Thanks.
Thanks. Yeah, that was a great opening event. Motion and a second to approve. Roll call.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0. Consent agenda. Any member of the city council may cause any item placed on the consent agenda to be removed. Items removed from the consent agenda shall be taken up by the city council immediately following the consent agenda in the order in which they were removed, unless otherwise provided by the city council rules of order.
The public hearing on agenda items 32 through 37 were held on June 13th. I don't see any further lights.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve. Roll call.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0.
The public hearings on agenda items 38 through 53 are today. If you wish to address the city council regarding these items, please come to the microphone, indicate the agenda item number you wish to address, identify yourself by name, address, and who you represent, and if you are a proponent or an opponent. We do still have some managers and Keno operators by Zoom if needed. Please come down.
Hi, I'm Josh Ayers, 209 South 9th Street, Plattsmouth, Nebraska. Item number 39, Sicky's Garage. I am the manager for both stores in Bellevue and in West Omaha.
Great. Thanks for being here.
Yep.
Any other testifiers on these items? Seeing none, public hearings are closed. Motion to approve in a second. Roll call.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0.
I think we should all come get a burger afterwards to support you for sitting here for, almost.
Actually got a lot of you guys go through a lot of stuff, so it's actually really fun to watch you guys.
Hope, in a good way, I hope.
No, it is. I learned a lot.
One public hearing can be held for items 54 and 55, ordinances to revise language in ordinance number 42272, and to approve an agreement with the Heartwood Preserve Master Property Owners Association.
Public hearing on items 54 and 55 are today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Item 56, an ordinance to approve a major amendment to a mixed-use district development agreement for Antler View located at 18902 Evans Street. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing on number 56 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Item 57, an ordinance to accept and authorize disbursement from the fiscal year 2021 Fire Prevention and Safety Grant Award.
Public hearing on number 57 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Item 58, an ordinance to amend sections 10-242 and 10-245 of the Omaha Municipal Code to increase the amount permitted to be spent for recognition and retirement dinners and the amount for plaques and certificates of achievement.
Public hearing on number 58 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed.
Item 59, an ordinance to approve a non-exclusive public road license agreement with Gigapower LLC.
Public hearing on number 59 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed.
Non-action items, items 60 through 79, do not require public hearing or city council consideration at this meeting, but will be placed on an agenda for public hearing and/or vote. The reason for non-action is noted after the item on the agenda, as well as the date the item is expected to appear on the agenda for consideration.
Motion to adjourn.
There's a motion and a second, and before I call it, I'll just say I wish everybody a happy 4th of July next week.
Thank you.
Roll call.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0. Meeting is adjourned at 5:30.